everyone. I'd like to bring this meeting of Forward Pinellas together and start the meeting with a invocation and pledge. Councilor Floyd, would you like to start us off with the invocation and pledge, please?
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
I thought it was
It doesn't matter.
okay. Oh, well, I mean, if someone else is prepared, I was just going to
No, I was doing a moment of silence.
Okay, well, let's see what you got planned, yeah.
Okay. Please join us in a moment of silence, each to his own faith. Amen.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to throw a Cheeto at you. I saw the face. I got a peanut butter cracker, too.
Let's start over here. What?
Oh, okay, you're going to go do a trick shot.
Is that all right?
Go ahead. I was just trying to get to Chelsea.
Thank you. And everyone, please introduce yourselves for the record so that we all are aware of everyone that's here.
Councilmember Andrew Knapp, City of Oldsmar, representing also Safety Harbor and Tarpon Springs.
Thank you.
Councilmember Richie Floyd, St. Petersburg.
Councilmember John Mohammed, St. Petersburg, District 7.
Brian Scott, Pinellas County Commission, District 2.
Julie Ward-Bajolski, Mayor of the Great City of Dunedin.
Counselor, go ahead, Mayor.
David Will, Mayor, Reddington Beach.
Chris Burke, Vice Mayor, City of Seminole, representing the inland communities.
Gina Driscoll, St. Petersburg City Council, representing PSTA.
Eric Gerard, Vice Mayor, City of Largo.
Dave Eggers, Pinellas County Commissioner.
David Albritton, Vice Mayor, City of Clearwater, and Treasurer, Ford Pinellas.
With Blanton, Executive Director, Ford Pinellas.
And I am Janet Long, Pinellas County Commission, District 1, and I am your chair this year. And so without further ado, let's do our item number 3A and ask Chelsea, can you come up to the podium, please? I thought I saw her.
She's right behind you, or in front of you.
Chelsea's in Zoom today, Commissioner.
Oh, sorry, I don't have eyes yet in the back of my head.
So Chelsea's at a conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and she has a panel presentation at 1:30. So we're shifting things around a little bit, and we'll revert back to our normal agenda as soon as we're finished.
Glad we could fit you in, Chelsea. Please go forward.
Well, thank you so much for accommodating me. Today I'm going to be presenting to you the final Unified Planning Work Program. So just as a reminder, the Unified Planning Work Program, or the UPWP, is a federal and state requirement. It's really the budget for the MPO side of our agency and documents how we plan on spending our transportation dollars for the next 2 years. The current UPWP was adopted in May of 2022, and it goes through June 30th of this year. So the next UPWP that we're talking about today will start July 1st and then go through June 30th of 2026. In terms of timeline, I did bring a draft of this to you at your March board meeting. So we have since sent it off to the review agencies. We've received some comments back, all very minor. So today we're looking for you all to adopt the UPWP. We'll send it back to the review agencies just for a final look in June, and then it'll go into effect on July 1st. Just an overview of the planning dollars that we have here at Ford Pinellas on the transportation side. We do receive about $5.8 million over a 2-year period for all transportation-related planning activities. There's a small amount of TD, or transportation advantaged funding that we receive. And then there's also about $35,000 remaining in a contract that we have through the Federal Transit Administration to do transit planning. That does look like a very small amount, and that's only because that's remaining from a prior contract. Our transit dollars are now wrapped into our overall federal planning funds. So that's why that is such a small amount of money that shows there. So the MPO grant funds and planning activities are required to be listed in the UPWP, and it has to be broken out into different tasks. And then our staff bills time that they spend on each of those different tasks to provide some accountability, to really show that what we say we're going to be working on is what we're actually working on. And FDOT and Federal Highway, they review on a quarterly basis to make sure that all the work we're doing aligns with what we said we were going to do. These are the different tasks that are included in the UPWP. I'm going to go through each one of these individually. They are labeled point 1, all of them, so it might look a little odd. There are subtasks kind of buried underneath these that we use for internal tracking, so that's why they're not just round, nice, even numbers. Overall, this is the budget and how it's broken out of that $5.8 million. We have about $2.6 million for personnel, including salary and benefits, about $2.3 million overall for consultant work, about $24,000 for travel, $831,000 for direct expenses. This includes rent, insurance, things like that. We have about $8,000 for supplies, and then equipment is about $126,000 over a 2-year period. Now, the first task that we have is program administration. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's really just how we administer the MPO program. It includes rent, insurance, procurement, certification activities, support to this board. It also includes some of our major direct expenses like our bicycle and pedestrian counters, which we've actually increased the budget for in the next 2 years. And then we've also included some funding in here for the purchasing of some safety equipment like our bike bells and bike lights and things like that that we hand out to the public. Our public participation task is primarily involving personnel costs, but we do have some consultant funding in here that the consultants assist us with our website and social media maintenance and other activities like that. But predominantly, this is all personnel costs. Our system monitoring task is split pretty evenly between personnel and consultant time. This is where we have our crash data monitoring program. We use consultants to go out and collect traffic counts on the network, and they also manage some databases for us to be able to provide level of service information and other metrics about our transportation system. We've increased this task since the last 2 years to be able to purchase some data support on call, just as needed. There's a lot of big data applications out there, and instead of just purchasing one, we have funding in here so that we can do smaller purchases as needed as we go. Our systems planning is one of our largest tasks. There is a lot of consultant money in here to be able to augment the staff that we already have. And this is the task where we are going to be looking to look at some signal technology improvements, where our trail crossings are, come up with a system plan for our trail count program. We also use this task to conduct before and after studies. So far, we've done 4 before studies on our Complete Streets projects. And then we'll be following those up with after studies once the construction has been completed for about, maybe about 2 years. We'll go back in and do the after studies. We also provide funding to our local governments through the Complete Streets grant program and other grant programs under this task. And we are looking to increase the amount of funding we provide to our local partners. So that has been increased here. We also do our safety planning here in this task, and we are planning to do an update to the Safe Streets Pinellas plan. And then this amount has been increased since the last time you saw this presentation, because some of those de-obligated funds that we brought to you last month have been added here to provide additional support for all of these activities. Our transportation improvement program, this is pretty much 100% staff time that we spend on working with the Department of Transportation to develop the TIP. Something new that we're doing is an annual state of the TIP. You may have seen a blog post that went out last week to give an update on some of the newer projects coming through the work program and about to go under construction. So that's something that we have enhanced going forward. Our long-range transportation plan, this one has also increased since the last time that you saw it. To provide some more support for developing the final documentation and the summary document. We'll also be translating our summary document to Spanish once we have that. The plan will be adopted by you all later this year in about the October-November timeframe. So this will provide that support needed to bring that to conclusion. Our regional activities, this is staff time, a little bit of consultant work to support the Suncoast Transportation Planning Alliance and the TMA Leadership Group. It also provides for staff time to work with the MPOAC. And we are also working as a region on a regional long-range transportation plan. It's actually going to be on your consent agenda to approve the scope and fee for that today. And so we did increase some of the funds in this task from the deobligated funds as well to account for the additional regional work that's been going on. Our special projects include the implementation of the Gateway Master Plan, which we have, as you can see there in green on the screen, a number of tasks that are coming up. Assessing the traffic now that the Gateway Expressway is opened. We're going to be looking at some targeted transportation and land use improvements in the area. We're also working on US 19 under this task, looking at the interchange versus the viaduct concept that you'll get a presentation on later today. And then also the downtown St. Petersburg implementation of that mobility study. Task 9 is strictly our shared task as a region. Each year, each of the MPOs in the region provides $5,000 towards regional planning activities, and we designate one MPO to kind of be the administrator of those funds. Ford Pinellas has that responsibility, so the $60,000 is $30,000 from each year, covering the local funds to go toward those planning activities. And then task 10 is our new one. It's exploration of a regional MPO. We really want to make sure that we're documenting the time and money spent on exploring the merger of the MPOs in the Tampa Bay region. So we'll be charging staff time to this just to be able to keep track as we go along as to the scope and level of that effort. So for our next steps, today we are asking the board to approve the final UPWP. Then we'll transmit it over to FDOT and Federal Highway, and then this will go into effect on July 1st. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board? Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, just from a staffing standpoint of our total staff that we have in both, how many are in the MPO side that are getting reimbursed from MPO funds?
I would say we have, oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Wait,
ahead,
do you want to take
Chelsea,
that?
if you've got the answer faster than I can come up with it.
I think we have about 7 full-time that are 100% funded by the MPO. Many of our staff, though, do split their time, so portions of time are split between the PPC and the MPO.
What's the total staff that we have?
7 full-time?
No, I'm talking about.
Oh, we're 18 total staff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything? Wow. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to speak, Tina?
Not on this item, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, okay then. We're going to need to take a roll call vote on this issue, so
This does not require a roll call vote. I just need a motion, a second, and a vote. No roll call.
I'm listening to him over here, just FYI.
Well, now you know who to listen to.
Did you hear what she said? Thank you for the clarification.
She's not wrong.
If I still have a
Okay.
job tomorrow, you can keep listening to me.
It works that way at the house, too.
Okay, everyone. We need a motion,
Move approval.
Second.
and the second was from Burke, or, okay. It's
Who
been
made the
moved by
motion? I didn't get it. So
Commissioner
Floyd and
Floyd.
Burke?
Yes. Okay, do you want to call the roll? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes successfully. All right, now we are on item 3B1. It's the Pinellas County Action Plan. This is a presentation by Emma Wennick.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have 2 cases today, and the first one is from Pinellas County. Just a little bit of background on this site. This is going to be a 1.7 acre portion of a larger 3.7 acre site, and the total property consists of 6 parcels. It is located at 29703 US Highway 19 North in Clearwater. The existing countywide plan map category is residential, low, medium, and preservation, and the proposed countywide plan map category is going to be retail and services. The existing uses is recreational boat sales and service, and it is intended to stay as such. The applicant wishes to keep the current Cycle Springs Power Sports business on site, but they are looking to redevelop the property with some new buildings for sales and services, parking lot reconfiguration, inventory storage area, new stormwater system, and driveway access as well. So these graphics are giving you the location depiction as well as the jurisdictional depiction, showing that it is within unincorporated with Clearwater directly to the south there. The surrounding uses, it is surrounded by single-family residential to the north and the east. There is also a commercial strip right to the north as well. And then to the south is an office park within the Clearwater jurisdiction. And then we have US Highway 19 north to the west there. So the requested amendment would ultimately designate the entire 3.7 acre subject property to retail and services, so it would be a more cohesive zoning. Future land use zoning and countywide plan map designation. This would allow for the redevelopment to be completed in a more cohesive manner instead of a piecemeal approach. And the intended use of the property would be consistent with the retail and services category. And then regarding the removal of the preservation designated areas, it was stated that this category was placed there in the early 1980s, and it was in association with a old stormwater project or the county's master drainage plan at the time. And the county did have staff go and inspect this site back in 2013, and it was noted that this preservation category was no longer warranted. So the max index score of this site is a 7.125, which is below the countywide average score of 9.7. However, the countywide rules do allow for other factors to be looked into when determining if the requested amendment would meet the relevant countywide considerations. And in this case, this project would result in new sidewalk construction as well as a reduction of on-street parking. Additionally, the US Highway 19 North expansion is under construction, as well as the North Side Drive pedestrian overpass is also under construction. So the completion of all of these would result in a max index score increase for the parcel. Shall this project be approved? So there has been some public opposition in terms of this site and this project, mostly regarding lack of privacy as well as traffic impacts. The applicant is also seeking a zoning atlas amendment, which includes a conditional overlay under a separate case number, which would account for some of these concerns. So this conditional overlay would limit the allowable uses to what is existing. It also would require enhanced setbacks, perimeter buffering, and screening, and it would also limit the building height to 45 feet. So in conclusion, the retail and services category would be appropriate for the proposed use. And although the max index score is below the countywide average, existing factors and projects under construction would result in a score increase for the grid cell. The proposed amendment either does not or would not significantly impact the remaining countywide considerations. So therefore, we find this amendment consistent and would recommend approval. And would open the floor to any questions at this time.
Any questions from the board? Anybody? No? Tina, are there any proponents that wish to speak to this?
Madam Chair, there are no proponents, opponents, or other citizens that have requested speaking time for this item.
All right, thank you. Okay, and now we need a motion. Move approval. It's been moved by Commissioner Boljowski, Mayor Boljowski, and Councilor David Albritton seconded it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, now we are on, is this another presentation we need from you, Emma?
One more, yes.
Okay, please continue.
Yep. So our second one today comes from Largo. A little bit of background on this site. It is a 1.54 acre site located at 13707 58th Street North. They are requesting an amendment to the countywide plan map from public, semi-public, and target employment center to employment and target employment center with the intent to build approximately 20,000 square feet of office and light manufacturing. The site is currently vacant, and the owner is Robot Risers, and they intend to relocate here from Oldsmar. And this is considered a target employer, and they manufacture conveyors, case erectors, workstations, inspection tables, and pick cells, etc. So again, this graphic is showing you the overall location of the site, as well as the jurisdiction being completely in Largo. So official records from the city did indicate that the property was annexed into the city in September of 2000 as a part of a multi-parcel annexation process for the ICOT Center. Surrounding uses here, we have the public college to the north, natural area to the east, general office to the south, and then more general office to the west. This area is within the boundaries of the multi-jurisdictional Gateway Master Plan, as well as the Target Employment Center overlay. So the proposed employment category and the Targeted Employment Center overlay are intended to recognize areas that are developable or proposed to be developed to facilitate employment uses. The amendment would promote the development of opportunities for the subject site that would allow for employment uses to be constructed. So therefore, it would be able to generate employment opportunities. This location is within the coastal high hazard area. However, this amendment would not impact hurricane shelter space or evacuation routes, and it would not result in significant impacts of the property since the site was previously developed and has existing infrastructure on it. Furthermore, the employment designation would eliminate the allowable residential density on the countywide plan map category from 12.5 units per acre to 0 units per acre. So in conclusion, the employment category as well as the target employment center overlay would be appropriate for the proposed use of the property, and it would be consistent. Undergoing this amendment would promote the redevelopment opportunities and generate employment opportunities. The property is located in the coastal high hazard area, but the requested amendment would eliminate the allocated residential density on the countywide plan map. And the proposed amendment either does not involve or would not significantly impact the remaining relevant countywide considerations. So therefore, staff finds this proposed amendment consistent and would recommend approval. Do you have any questions for this one?
Are there any questions or concerns from the board? Anybody?
Just a quick question.
Commissioner Eggers.
It's showing the property and it's showing all of that, what I would consider preserve behind it. It's being shown as public, semi-public. I'm just trying to understand how that is.
How it's public, semi-public?
It's not having anything to do with the subject property, but it's the property behind it that looks like preserve.
The natural area behind it?
So I can say, if I remember correctly when I zoomed out a little bit more, it could have been somewhat of a stormwater pond. It is surrounded by development on either side. It's more so like a sliver, but I can't speak to as to why it was designated. Not preservation is, I guess,
Not really a natural area, it's more of a stormwater pond.
with the natural area inside of it, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I see what Dave's saying. I mean, there's a map, which is the map 4.
That one.
Your mic.
Your mic.
David.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So map 4 does show that it does not go all the way to the green natural area, which is different than what is showing up there. Map 3 shows it going to the natural area, and map 4 doesn't, so it might be just a different scale or something.
It definitely could be a different scale.
Anyone else? Is there any proponents or opponents, Tina?
No, Madam Chair, there's no one wishing to speak on this item.
All right. Then we are in a posture to be able to vote, so may I have a motion?
Move approval.
It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And now we are on citizens to be heard. Tina, do we have citizens wishing to speak?
Yes, Madam Chair, David Ballard Geddes Jr.
Of course. David?
Hi, good afternoon. Good to see everybody. David Ballard Geddes Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor. Designing the fundamentals of society is not a new concept. Governments have seemingly been failing at it for thousands of years. The practice of doing things in half measures comprehensively seemed to be the plan throughout the ages. The simple factoring of adequate water, roads, housing, food, sewer infrastructure, and even toilet paper have recently revealed the planned shortfalls of our currently well-funded government. This government's live, work, and play policy appears to have stifled proper planning methods regarding basic functions of government and has led to the squandering of resources, mainly water, as based on the 14th Amendment. Deliberately not doing things correctly seems to be a money-making business opportunity. Wasting time, money, and resources in its process fails to qualify as a sovereign leadership in government. Discoursing, eating us out of our subsistence appears to be the objective of this government. The word perfidiousness is used to describe such political behavior in the Declaration of Independence. For example, building a house on top of a half-inch copper pipe, knowing good and well that the water pipe was going to fail in 30 or 40 years. Repairing and replacing the water pipe is a future money-making opportunity in the bank. Planned obsolescence appears to be the game, equipping every home with a sprinkler system, deliberately exhausting our water supply, legislating oppressive laws to govern such wasted water supply is the game. Pursuing ad valorem revenue through overdevelopment practices while underfunding the construction of adequate roads and sewer systems is the game. US 19 is a prime example. The government has made game of the busing system, overfunding oversized buses while underfunding adequate bus stops for the ridership. The efficiency of public transportation utilizing a tram such as a tram at Walt Disney World or the tram at Busch Gardens. St. Augustine utilizes a tram for its ghost tours. Key West utilizes a tram for its conch tours. The tram is inexpensive and efficient for in-town local maneuverability. seems as though this government's making game of the transportation system, politically doing as you please rather than doing what is proper and efficient, conflicts with the sovereignty of this government. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Your time is up. Anyone else, Tina?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Then we shall move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items to be pulled from consent? Commissioner Eggers? Anything else? Then may we have a motion on all the rest of the consent?
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And now we'll go back to item G. Go ahead. Who's going to do that?
I'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner and board members. What you have before you is an agenda item to procure a consultant to assist us with a transit market research study for waterborne transportation. The last one that I'm aware of that's been done was done by Hillsborough TPO in 2010, so about 15 years ago. This would be a regional assessment that would include a quantitative survey as well as qualitative interviews, and a combination of the consultant's work with staff work using a tool that we've purchased called Policy Map that would allow us to look at an aggregated set of various data sources to look at travel time, job availability, population and employment density, travel time reliability, and other factors that would help influence or inform the market research analysis. The consultant has proposed a three-phased approach. First would be in-depth interviews, followed by the demand study that would be a statistically valid analysis of various market segments to include visitors and tourists, people who've used the ferry, the Cross Bay Ferry and the Clearwater Ferry, and potentially other ferry operations around the region, because there's one in Manatee County. It would include surveys of residents and employers as well. We would break that down by age and demographic factors, gender, age, things like that, income. That would then be followed by the third phase, which is to compile the results and present those findings. The consultant has one trip planned to the area. They are based in the Seattle area and have an extensive amount of experience in waterborne transit market research, just like this. Some of their examples are in the research proposal overview. The scope seems very reasonable to me. It's between $37,000 and $44,000. What we're asking the board to consider is an amount not to exceed $55,000. That allows us to potentially be flexible if there's some additional analysis or additional work that needs to be done as part of that. We would stay within the $44,000 range if we can. And then it also, because this consultant would need to be under one of our existing consultants, it would also account for any additional costs that might be incurred to process invoices and things like that, although I'm not sure that that will be necessary. The goal here would be to get this project underway as early as we can, after, say, July 1st, to inform an emerging scope of work with the Urban Land Institute to do a technical assistance panel to develop recommendations on ways to enhance ferry service, waterborne transportation service in general. That Urban Land Institute panel is in the scope development currently with the St. Pete Chamber and the City of St. Petersburg, and they'll be looking at factors like access, permanent docking locations, things like that, as well as other recommendations on fare structure, price points, which will be informed by the market research study. So we see this as an opportunity to sort of integrate all these elements. We would form a study committee that would include the MPOs in Sarasota, Manatee, and Hillsborough, as well as ours, and probably include the City of Tampa as well. The backdrop for all of this is that Hillsborough County is currently administering the Cross Bay Ferry services operated by HMS Ferries. I think they have 1 or 2 years left in that agreement. The intent would be to ultimately procure that service with a new operator potentially somebody local, or at least in the state of Florida, and move to more of a year-round service. That's the long-term goal. So if we move to a long-term, or to that kind of year-round service, and we are looking to invest the state grant that we won in the Clearwater Ferry, we just think it's good timing to understand the market demands and market considerations that would lead to better usage of the service and move away from what currently is really more of a excursion-based or tourism destination-based service, and make it more of a full part of the transportation network.
And that's the plan for this study, which is, you said $37,000, and it goes to $55,000.
37 to 44 is the range.
And that
they gave
is
us.
for, I mean, I heard most of the conversation about this regarding the Cross Bay Ferry. I don't feel like there's much focus on the same. We have a big issue over here in this intercoastal. One of the things that a lot of people have been asking about is, well, what is the demand? What is the interest? Right. I think there's more demand, more interest in over here. I'm not even sure what it is over there, so it'll be interesting to see how that develops, because certainly the idea originally, it's not turned into that at all. It's not a service for going to work back and forth. It's really, as you say, it's more event-driven, so it'll be good. I mean, I'll be glad to see it. I just don't know that this study is going to get at that, number one. Number two, one of the biggest users is our tourists. And to the extent that they're not going to be interviewed because they're not here, or the people that live here, how is that going to be factored into the study?
They will be interviewed. They're going to get information from the tourism bureaus in the 3 counties on contacts, and they'll have an avenue to interview tourists who are here, or either have been here or have vacationed here.
Okay. We'll be interested in seeing that.
So Whit?
Yes.
I seem to recall, please tell me if I'm wrong, that when we were originally talking about the Cross Bay Ferry and the Clearwater one, I thought there had been a study done then on these issues. I clearly remember that. We were meeting over in the Magnolia Room. Surely you remember that, Commissioner Eggers, because we had a lot of discussion about that.
We did, and a couple of years ago, we partnered with PSTA to do a ridership study, which projected ridership.
Yep.
But that's different than a market research or market demand, because this will look at the segmentation. The ridership just gave us a number, and it was how many users for these different routes. And we looked at routes that were in South County on the intercoastal St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, Madeira area. We looked at service up and down the northern part of the intercoastal waterway. We looked at routes, I think we even included routes to Oldsmar as part of the analysis. So we had ridership, but that's just one, it's just a number. It's just a number of what we estimated to be the total ridership. This is a much deeper and more broadly based analysis of who would actually use it and under what conditions.
And what's the time frame for getting this great project completed? I mean, it seems really like a short period of time.
It's pretty quick.
And a very in-depth look at a market study that I don't know how they're going to pull off anything substantive.
Well, they gave us a timeline of 3 to 5 months. I said 6 months is probably a good time frame to assume. So the idea would be to wrap it up by the end of the year and have that feed into the ULI Technical Assistance Panel that would begin at the beginning of next year.
Well, hopefully it'll be more than just a statistical sample, that will actually have some numbers that give some comfort to not only administration on the county side, but elected officials on the intercoastal demand. What is that demand? Yep. What does it look like, other than we kind of want to do it?
Right.
What's it look like in terms of what we really can provide our residents and our visitors? So.
And I've also, just anecdotally, in talking with the city of Clearwater, they don't think too many workers are using the Clearwater Ferry right now. It's a subscription, it's a reservation-based service, so it's not the regular transit route that was operating before the pandemic. So part of it would be to understand how we make that service more attractive to residents, to workers, as well as the tourists.
Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. What you had mentioned that the Cross Bay Ferry is mostly tourist-based or tourism-based. And I just want to clarify that locals can be tourists in their own area as well. So when you say tourist-based, it doesn't mean that no locals or no area residents are using the Cross Bay Ferry. There are many people who use it to go from St. Pete to Tampa and vice versa for entertainment, for leisure, things like that. The commuting number is quite low. And so it's true, it's not really being used as a commuter service, but we do want to look at how we could expand the uses, and that's why I think this is so valuable. It'll give us a realistic look at what expanded uses we could really try for and point us in the right direction as to how to get there and broaden the opportunity for more people to use it. Anybody can say, yeah, it could be used by more people for more things if it was more frequent or faster. Well, what does that have to look like in order to get us to that tipping point? That's why I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you for your clarification. I didn't mean to say it was tourists. I meant to say event-based.
I know.
Commissioner Egger said it right. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Burke.
Firstly, I agree with Commissioner Eggers about a strong look at the use of it up and down the intercoastal for transport. I'm wondering if we've reached out to Hillsborough or Manatee, Sarasota to see if they wanted to partner with us on the study fiscally.
We have not at this time. The Hillsborough County is currently administering the operation over there, and there are things that we are sharing responsibilities on. You've already approved one item where they are contributing dollars to the regional long-range plan development. I thought this was something that was affordable within our budget that we could offer on behalf of the region, and sometimes we take those on, sometimes Hillsborough takes that on. As an example, Hillsborough MPO just submitted a grant on behalf of all of us, Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas, to the federal government for how we can better align our prioritization process as we think about becoming a regional MPO. And they put their own staff time, 95% into that. So we kind of do a little bit of quid pro quo on those things.
I would just add one. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there somebody else?
Well, Mayor Will, did you have something?
I would just agree with Commissioner Eggers and see if we can focus this more on getting people to and from the barrier islands. And as far as employees go, as Commissioner Driscoll said, rather than just transportainment, actual transportation.
We will make sure that that's featured in the report. I also think it's worth pointing out that the last census that reported on journey to work showed that it's about 16% of total travel. So when you talk about focusing on work trips, it's a dropping percentage of overall travel. So it's great to capture those work trips, but it's a small percentage of who's out on the roads for the most part.
But that's because of the culture we have here. So it takes time to change the culture and encourage people to use public transportation options instead of jumping in their car. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Bolger, I'm so sorry, Mary,
It's
you're
okay.
sitting on my wrong.
Don't worry about it.
Go ahead.
Two things. Is this going to slow down our project that we're working on in Clearwater and Dunedin?
No, this has nothing to do with the state grant. We're still planning to initiate that in October.
October 1st. Okay, and then the second thing is, I'm all about the intercoastal. I am one of the members of the Waterborne Transportation Committee from its inception. Matter of fact, I think I was the one that thought of the idea. But I think it's really, really important to understand that if you just look at Visit St. Pete Clearwater numbers of how many people are on the road and look at our census records, we've got about 600,000 cars on the road every year. I'll even round it up to 7 that are residents. We have about 5.5 million cars on the road every year coming from tourism, whether that is coming from the airport or drive-in traffic or, day trippers or whatever. So it is not a bad word to focus transportation on tourism because they are the biggest sector clogging our roads. So I don't care if this is all used by tourism because it will help us all out. And I will repeat that 1,000 times. You will hear it 1,000 times out of my mouth. Thank you.
Commissioner Scott? Oh, Commissioner, I'm sorry, David. Go ahead.
One of the biggest segments of this market, I've always thought, was the service personnel to our tourism industry. The out islands, or barrier islands we have, that's where we get the majority of our money. And there's a lot of service personnel that have to go out there and work on those islands. There is not parking for them, or if there is, it's very expensive. So I think one of the biggest segments that will take us up on this will be the service personnel that can, and then if it's under PSTA, they can take a bus right to the ferry, take the ferry over, then come back the same way and not have to worry about where they're parking their car. So I'd be really interested in seeing, not only in Clearwater, I'm thinking about all the way down to the mouth of Tampa Bay, all the municipalities that have service personnel that do not live on the beach or on the barrier island, but have to drive in. I think they're going to be the ones to really, I think, jump on board on this.
We'd love to see that. That's always been the goal. Until we get back to regular service, though, that's probably not going to be achievable. So that's what the grant is to do, is to get us back on a regular schedule. And this market research study should solidify that and reinforce that. I'm hopeful.
Although I do think the Sunrunner line has done a good job moving our service folks out to the beach and back home again, for their work shifts, such. So Commissioner Eggers, yeah.
Yeah, so in this research, I think asking those who are using it and trying to understand what those markets are is helpful. I also think talking to people that don't use it and why is also helpful. And to me, it's probably the most important thing, because what I hear is some people that want to go out to the beach for some fun. They go out to the beach to go to the beach, or they go out to the beach just to kind of shop, or they go out to the beach to go to a really nice dinner. When they get to the other side, the answers are not there for them.
Right.
So if I want to go to a nice dinner, I'm dressed up to go to a nice dinner, and I got to get on a trolley that has 10 stops before I get there. And I just think that the solution is not just in the transporting back and forth, but it's understanding what those submarkets are like and how do you service them.
Right.
To actually, to your point about, it's not changing a culture, it's really just kind of answering the bell. The bell is, here's what I need. If I'm going to go to the beach, and the services have to be there. And so I guess I'm getting not tired of, but I don't just want to say build it and they will come, because that's just not. We need to build it, but it's also building services that are actually usable. And I just think that's something that hopefully the research will point out, how they're usable, why they're usable. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I agree with everything that Mayor Wojciechowski said, is that if tourists use this en masse, I think that would be a wonderful thing, because they do create such a huge impact on our transportation infrastructure. And with that in mind, I think it would at least be important for the company doing the survey to know that if they were to start in July, that's not our peak tourist season. So they should at least understand the seasonality of our area here. So that may, that may affect when they want to do the survey, or how they display the results.
We'll take that up with them, and
Okay.
if we adjust the schedule, we'll let you know.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, those are airport users. Those are, you just had the PI folks and the folks from Clearwater St. Pete Airport that, they're saying we want to be plugged in as well, because we know that there are a lot of people that go from our airports to the beaches. And they rent cars, and because they don't feel like there's a service available to that makes it a good one. I mean, they're spending $800 or $900 a night for a hotel room. So if you give them something that's actually usable for them, it might answer some things. But please, hopefully they take that into account too. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Tina, is there anybody else signed up on this issue?
No, Madam Chair, there isn't.
Okay. Well, then we need a vote on this, right?
We should.
Yeah. I'm ready to entertain a motion. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, and now, Counselor Driscoll, would you like to give the PSTA report?
Madam Chair, we need to revisit item F from the consent agenda, which was also pulled by Commissioner Eggers, so we need to handle that.
Are you talking about item G? I thought we addressed that.
No, he just pulled the one.
Oh, so sorry.
Didn't you learn the lesson earlier in the meeting?
Okay. We're good? Okay. Counselor Driscoll,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
The PSTA board had its last board meeting on April 24th, 2024. The board approved a construction management contract with HDR specifically for the Clearwater Transit Center. The board also received a presentation on fiscal year 2025's operating budget assumptions, including property tax estimates, passenger fares, operating assistance, and expenses. Board members also participated in a budget workshop on April 26, to help establish priorities for the budget in a variety of areas such as bus service levels, performance metrics, and marketing. The capital budget will be presented in May, and our next board meeting will be held on May 29th at 9 a.m. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions or concerns about Counselor Driscoll's report? Seeing none, let's move on to the regional activities report.
I'll keep this fairly brief. This week, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council is hosting a Resilience Summit at Clearwater Beach. It's later this week, Thursday, Friday. The main thing I wanted to mention to you, though, is coming up on May 17th is the next meeting of the Tampa Bay Area Transportation Management Area Leadership Group meeting between Pasco, Pinellas, and Hillsborough County. And we will be taking up the issue of our transit providers, public transit providers, as part of the regional MPO. And we're also going to just make sure we've continued to build consensus along the way about discussions we've already had about the regional transportation providers. The Hillsborough TPO is now in the practice of having a special meeting prior to the TMA Leadership Group meeting to provide board direction to the 3 representatives who go to their TMA Leadership Group meeting. They met last week, and we had a chance to talk with staff about the results of that meeting. But the board voted to have a preference to not include the public transit providers as voting members of a regional MPO board. And when we asked the staff if there was much rationale about that or what was the rationale behind that, they didn't really have much of an answer for that. Essentially, the one comment that was made was that the city of Tampa would prefer to see the transit providers in a voting position on the board, even if they were staff, and felt like it would send the wrong message that transit is not important to the regional discussion of transportation. So we don't really know the motivations behind the rest of the board members about why they voted the way they did, but I wanted to make you all aware that that's a topic of conversation that we're going to have, and we can seek some clarity at the meeting on the 17th. Again, these meetings are developing recommendations that the full MPO boards will consider. We did have a meeting of the 3 county commissions that was scheduled for last month, I believe, and that meeting was postponed because of some scheduling conflicts. And this was going to be a topic on that agenda, so we're looking to reschedule that at some point during the summer with the 3 county commissions, and if requested again, I'll be there along with Secretary Gwynn to talk about the process and progress we're making on the merger. The last bit of information on this topic is that at our staff directors meeting, I volunteered to begin drafting the scope of services for the management and legal consultant that we have intended to hire beginning in 2025. As you know, this year we've kind of been working at a staff level through some of these issues to find consensus as directed by the TMA leadership group to not wait a while, but just dive right in to address these issues. But we do feel like there is a real need for an independent facilitator and convener and somebody who can provide national and statewide legal guidance as we form this organization. And the goal would be to do that procurement by the end of the year and get somebody on board by early 2025. The Florida Department of Transportation, as a reminder, has made available $500,000 for that effort, so we know where the money's coming from. But we are going to procure it as MPOs and not go through the department or use one of the department's consultants. And I'll open it up to any questions if anybody has on that topic.
So I have a question.
Yes.
And at the risk of sounding a little snarky, when we put these meetings to, I see you. When we put these meetings together and we work so hard to build consensus and we're trying so diligently to make sure that everyone is included, I do believe there's a conversation that needs to be had about showing up with an open mind and a willingness to listen to ideas that will move us forward, because I hate to put them on the spot, but I'm going to. Commissioner Eggers will remember when we went through a lot of this kind of process and specifically planned the meeting to be had over in Hillsborough County at the port, and the Hillsborough people did not show up. So it's a lot of work. We make a lot of effort, you know, when you're going from one county to the other and it's in the middle of early morning traffic because everybody's trying to get to work, and then you get there and you think you're going to be able to accomplish all these amazing things, but you don't have one of your business partners at the table.
That's right. That was disappointing.
So, well, you know, thank you.
I was there.
Well, can we please not repeat that again?
I think they'll show up. I think what's different now is that they're providing direction to the 3 who go to those meetings before the meeting, and I don't really want to speculate why they're doing that, but they are. And so I bring it to your attention so that the full board knows going in what the discussion is, and if you want to provide our 3 representatives any direction, you may, but I think our board members who go to those meetings do a pretty good job of reflecting the discussions we've had here in Pinellas County.
Well, they sure do. It would be nice if it was reciprocated. Okay, I said it. I'll be quiet. Go ahead, Commissioner Eggers.
On this, the TPO meeting that said they didn't want the transit services on the board, are they still supporting the 2 ports to have seats on the board, leaving 23 seats to be split between the 3 counties? Is that still the?
They are, yeah, so they would be regional seats that would come off the top and not come out of the population-based seats of Hillsborough. And the idea is that that would be staff representation who tend to think and vote regionally anyway. I think we have consensus on that. I don't know that we have consensus on the exact number of seats that the regional MPO would have, whether it's 23 or 25 or 21, those numbers were discussed. So one of the things we're going to do at the 17th meeting is just reaffirm if there's a preference for the number of seats on the board.
Yeah, we were wanting to make sure that the 2 ports weren't getting funding from Hillsborough County, so that there wasn't basically 2 votes there if they're truly a regional, they shouldn't be getting any money from anybody except their own independent sources of funds. Otherwise, they should be counted in the numbers. So that was one of those issues, and I think we kind of got to a point where, that being said, then we'd have the balance would be split. The only important thing is that no one county would get a majority, and that was really important. If that doesn't work out that way, then I won't support it at all.
Okay.
So I think that if we have it split between Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, so that there is a, if Pasco and Pinellas can vote together, if that was the case, if Hillsborough's trying to do something that we don't like. It shouldn't be one county that dictates what this region does. That's all I was saying. So, and so it was really important to understand those two ports and where they come from, to whether they count for Hillsborough's numbers. And the other thing was, I'm not disagreeing about the transit folks on there, but it's really not their choice what we do with our 6 or 5 or 7 or, so I mean, that's just something else to think about. That's right. How much autonomy do we have in the consistency of our representatives? That's right.
Don't you think it's important to know that going in?
Well, those are what these discussions are going on. We'll keep knocking our heads. But I'm glad that TPO weighed in so that it wasn't the 2 out of the 3 that are there just always have a different perspective. So it's nice to get the board's perspective.
And I'll be remiss if I don't mention that the meeting is at PSTA on the 17th at 9:30.
Thank you, because I meant to ask you that.
In our county. You may have read about an unfortunate incident that happened at the Florida Department of Transportation about a month ago. And
Yep.
they have changed their procedures such that the general public can't enter the building if their name is not on a list of approved visitors. So that makes it difficult to have a public meeting at the Florida Department of Transportation District 7 right now. We are expecting some additional rules to be forthcoming, maybe for all DOT district offices. So in the meantime, we thought it was better to have the meeting at a different location.
Good plan. Anybody else over here on this side? No comment?
I just had a question for
Ma'am?
what transit providers and port people, isn't that transit as well?
I'm sorry, port people, is that what you said?
I don't know what you call them.
Well, the Port Tampa Bay is transporting freight for the most part, and then the airport is certainly transporting passengers. So yes, absolutely.
I guess what's the difference?
Well, I think a little bit of a difference is that in Pasco County, the transit agency is under the Board of County Commissioners.
Oh.
So having the county commissioners there does reflect their transit agency.
But that's their issue.
That's true.
That's not our issue.
Unique to them. We have independent authorities in
Right.
Pinellas and Hillsborough.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Driscoll?
Thank you. So the Port of St. Petersburg is currently the home of the Crosby Ferry, which transports people. So will the Port of St. Petersburg have a representative on that board?
How is the Port of St. Petersburg governed? Is it under the city of
The
St.
city?
Petersburg? You know, that's a question we can bring up and talk about. We haven't really talked about the Port of St. Petersburg.
The
but
mayor is on the TMA.
The mayor is not on the TMA.
He's not?
Not
No,
currently.
I am.
Mm-mm. No, Gina is the
But I've
representative.
seen him at the meetings.
I think as a county commissioner, he was on it.
Oh.
So,
Let's bring that question up. We can certainly talk about it.
the city?
I think that would be similar to the transit agency in Pasco County, which is under the county commission. Your mic. Yep.
Would be one of the people that we put on our group, but it certainly wouldn't come off the top because
Right.
the funding is, and they're governed by, as opposed to those two entities that are not. Well, at least that's what we're making sure of. We don't want those independent voters off the top to be beholding to anybody,
Right.
so, like yours is.
Now, having said that, it is a temporary location.
Right.
But we do have people and things that move in and out of the Port of St. Petersburg all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So just something to consider as we get ready for that meeting. I think we're going to have to see how this is laid out and move the pieces around. But I agree, we need to make sure that the representation, the makeup of the representation from each county has to be consistent.
Right.
So that's what I'll be looking for.
Yeah, we're looking into this a little bit further, but I think it may be a challenge and may not be legal for each of the 3 counties, if you've got 7 or 8 seats, to decide on your own how those 7 or 8 seats are established. We're going to have an interlocal agreement that specifies that. And I wouldn't want inconsistencies. For instance, if Hillsborough decides, well, we're going to have a school board representation, and we don't have a school board representation, that doesn't seem right. You know, it feels like that needs to be part of the agreement for forming the regional MPO, is to have consistency. There may be ways to work in some flexibility. For instance, when we get to the discussion of how we treat smaller cities that are under, say, 50,000 or whatever population, we could in Pinellas say, we'd like to have one north of Ulmerton and one south of Ulmerton, and that would come out of our representation. We'd have to figure out a way to work that into the agreement for the regional MPO so that there was some flexibility in how small cities were addressed, even though there are fewer of them in Pasco and Hillsborough County.
Right.
So that'll be a discussion for September.
Can't wait. Thank you.
See why we might need a management and legal consultant.
Anyone else over here? No? How about over here? Anybody? No? Okay, anything else from you, Whit? That's it. All right. Now, I don't think we need to vote on this. And how about future plans for US 19? Who's speaking to that?
We have a consultant here with the Florida Department of Transportation, Jason.
Hi, Jason. Please come on up.
And as he's coming up, I want to clarify, this is not an action item, but we are seeking direction from the board and a level of comfort to take this show on the road to the Tarpon Springs Board of Commissioners, to the public, and to the business community in the Palm Harbor, Tarpon Springs area.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for having us here today. Always a pleasure to address the board and give you an update on a very important project to the Tampa Bay region, US 19. Step through a little bit of history for you real quick. So the US 19 project.
Excuse me, Jason, do you have your mic on? I don't see
I
a
have
red
no
light.
idea how to turn it on.
It's on, you just need to pull it closer.
Maybe just speak right into the mic.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes, very
All right.
much so. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I'll learn. I apologize. Recap, a pleasure. Thank you for having us here today to talk about a very important project to FDOT and the entire Tampa Bay region. US 19, as we get an update and give you a kind of an update on the current status and some of the potential options that we look at moving forward. So a brief history, US 19 that's under construction today that we're all living with and experiencing on a daily basis was currently studied on the original PD study back in May 1990, looked at a design year of 2010. At that time, we were looking at 77,000 average daily vehicle trips along the corridor. This study went from Gandy Boulevard all the way up to Alt 19 in Pasco County and really focused on a lot of the projects that you've seen over the last 30 years. This project included the Drew Street overpass, it included 590 Coachman, and the construction that's underway today up north of State Road 580. So throughout the years, we've had various updates and reevaluations to this study. The most recent one was completed in 2014. Again, that used a design year of 2040. That time, just to compare, our average annual traffic was up to around 98,000 vehicles a day, was what we were projecting in 2040. Just as comparison, we're around 76,000, 78,000 today. And this is looking just now north of Tarpon Avenue, just looked the same location to provide comparison. So this study, again, made updates to the original PD&E study. And again, every time we revisit US 19, we look at what's changed, what's different along the corridor, what's different in our use of the corridor. So the original study that was done in 1990 focused on passenger vehicles, focused on trucks, focused on cars, and how best to move along the corridor. The overall improvements within that typical section had a 6-lane elevated grade separation with number of interchanges, single-point urban interchanges along the corridor, and then bike lanes and sidewalks. As we looked at the 2014 update, we wanted to start looking at things a little more holistically. So this project focused on, at that time, we looked at everything that had been built up to that point and went further north. So started at State Road 580 and went up to, again, Alt 19, and compared the previous recommendations for where we had interchanges and grade separations and looked at it with updated traffic numbers, and also looked at some of the lessons learned that we had from the prior 30 years of construction. So what the study recommended was 6 design projects. 2 of them are currently under construction today. That's from State Road 580 to Northside Drive, and then Northside Drive to County Road 95, which is just north of Curlew Avenue. Those projects began construction a little over a year and a half ago and are projected to go on for another 4.5, 5 years. So those projects took the prior concept, still stuck with the 6-lane grade separated elevated facility, but added in some additional multimodal facilities. Looked at wider sidewalks. So instead of a 6-foot sidewalk, we're now building a 10-foot sidewalk to allow a little more multimodal accommodations, and also looked at more pedestrian crossing operations. So I'll get to that in just a minute. But the overall recommendations from this job were the 2 that are currently under construction, and then 4 other design segments going from Tampa, Nebraska, then up through Alderman, up through Klosterman, and then up through Tarpon Avenue, focused within the Pinellas County segments for these 4 jobs. So what are we building today? Here's a few renderings of the design job that's currently under construction. And again, I mentioned the focus on pedestrian accommodations. Have done a lot of work with WIT, MPO staff, and also the board on how best can we accommodate pedestrian users. One of the lessons learned that we had from the prior projects from Whitney Road up to State Road 60 was the gap from Bel Air Road up to Seville Boulevard, about 1.5 miles, almost 2 miles without a pedestrian crossing. So one thing we did after that was we went back after the fact, built a pedestrian overpass at Harn Boulevard. That's one thing that we wanted to bake into these projects from the beginning. So as you can see through here on this design, we've got 3 blue circles along the corridor. And so just south of Republic Drive, and then about halfway between 580 and Northside, near Boy Scout Road, and then also at Northside Drive, we added pedestrian crossings across US 19. All different manner of accommodating this. At Northside Drive, we have the pedestrian overpass. At Boy Scout Drive, we have what we call a U-turn overpass, which allows pedestrian crossings underneath US 19 while also allowing passenger vehicles and trucks to make U-turn movements. And then south of Northside Drive, we have a pedestrian throughway, which just accommodates the pedestrian crossings. So one thing working with Ford Pinellas staff was looking at what's the proper distance for having these pedestrian crossings. So we looked at approximately a 1/4 mile spacing. That was the request from Ford Pinellas. We weren't able to accomplish that on the existing projects due to profile constraints, ramp constraints. We got about a 1/2 mile. That was what we were able to do on the projects that are currently under construction and the projects that are under design moving forward. So as you look at this graphic, as we go from Tampa up to Nebraska, Alderman, Klosterman, and all the way up to just south of Tarpon Avenue, we've got approximately a 1/2 mile spacing for these pedestrian crossings. And this is a rendering of the pedestrian throughway over there on the right side. So again, it's something that's more focused on when we have a lower speed, lower volume along those frontage lanes to allow the at-grade crossing of the frontage lanes, but to keep them grade separated from the elevated US 19 high-speed traffic. I think I pressed the wrong button. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so now that we are revisiting US 19 again, we want to see what else have we learned. So we went through the changes that we made for the 2 design projects that are under construction, but these next 4, is there anything that we want to do differently? Typically, we do a reevaluation every 10 to 15 years, and so we're coming up on that time frame again of, all right, let's look at what our traffic numbers are, let's look at what the recommendations are along the corridor, and let's see if we need to make any changes. So working with Forward Pinellas staff, we went ahead and said, what can we do to provide that quarter-mile pedestrian crossing while also meeting our required level of service along the main line, US 19, which is a SIS facility, has to move that regional traffic, but also provide the connectivity to the businesses, the communities, and the side streets along the corridor. So we did look at the current typical section that we're doing with the wide sidewalks with the frontage lanes and the MSC wall and the ramps. Then we decided, based on some inspiration from the Gandy West Extension project, or Selman West Extension, of can we build a viaduct? Is there a way to have a longer bridge that provides additional vertical clearance, a more visually, I guess, satisfying view across the corridor, while still meets the required level of service and provides the accommodation needed along the corridor. And finally, we look at a hybrid concept, which is a combination of the 2. So I'll step through these 3 different concepts now and kind of show you the pros and cons of each of these. So again, real quick to orient you, so within the corridor north of County Road 95, there were the 4 design segments I mentioned. Based on coordination with staff and based on the schedule of those current projects, we're still looking at the current grade separated concept at Tampa and Nebraska. So that's what's shown there at the bottom. And then looking at accommodations for this viaduct concept as we go further north. So looking at the Alderman, Innisbrook, Tarpon, Klosterman area. So again, focusing on this corridor, it's about a 7.5 mile for the overall corridor length going up to Alt 19. But as we looked at the traffic volumes and the land uses, we really focused on the 5 miles from just south of Alderman to right around Tarpon Avenue. Wanted to look at options that ended the viaduct south of Tarpon Avenue and then some that extended north of Tarpon Avenue as well. So this concept shows the major interchanges that were looked at. All right, so what does the concept look like? So again, we said we wanted an elevated bridge structure. So most bridges, most overpasses along US 19 have about a 16-foot vertical clearance from the roadway to the bottom of the bridge above it. We wanted something elevated. So this provides 25 foot of clearance from the roadway surface to the bridge above it. So a much more open concept. We also wanted to see how can we minimize the traffic on the frontage lanes. The overall goal, again, we want to have pedestrian crossings more frequently. So that would be needing to have lower volumes along the frontage lanes. Also, we wanted to have the ability to have left and right turn lanes where they're needed. One of the constraints along US 19 today with 200-foot right-of-way is we really don't have room for right turn lanes. So at some of the overpasses, we can add left turn lanes when we elevate the bridge structure, but right turn lanes are typically not able to be accommodated. So with this concept, what we have is the 10-foot sidewalks to provide pedestrian connectivity along the corridor. We've got typically 2 to 3 lanes in each direction, and then we've got this wide area underneath from frontage lane to frontage lane that can be used for any number of purposes, whether it's pedestrian crossings, whether it's U-turn median movements, or I know what you've talked about, if there's any desire from the community to activate that space, that's a discussion that could be had. Again, focusing on still providing the, for what US 19 is required. As a SIS facility, we still need to look at that long-range movement of traffic, especially from Pasco County down into mid-Pinellas and further south, based on the traffic volumes. 6 lanes is clearly needed for that elevated section. But where things get interesting is what do you need down below? So looking at the 2040 volumes, what we did was a screening analysis, looking at the volumes from our previous report, and then looking at what happens when we eliminate ramps. One of the opportunities to provide the viaduct structure is the elimination of the ramps, because you need a ramp when you want to either touch down, in order to provide a ramp, you either need to bring the frontage lanes up to elevated US 19 or bring US 19 down. That introduces walls, it introduces visual blockages. So we said, all right, big picture, can we eliminate all the ramps within this 5-mile section? So when we did that, we found, well, the volume still needs to go somewhere. So when we eliminate the ramps, traffic is still wanting to access Alderman, still wanting to access Tarpon, still wanting to access Klosterman. And when they do not have the opportunity to go from the elevated section to those intersections, they need to stay at grade. So when we looked at those volumes, our volumes on the frontage road increased drastically. Went from less than 1,000 vehicles to up to 3,600 vehicles in the peak hour. Those volumes require probably 4 lanes in each direction, which is not, this is not consistent with our desire for reduced volume, reduced speeds on the frontage road. So this, just to give you a comparison of what that typical would look like. On the bottom is a typical US 19, what we have under construction now from 580 to Curly Road. Again, a series of overpasses with those 15-foot clearances. Typically, the pedestrian throughway has about a 12-foot clearance, but you go up, you go down, you have your ramps. And then occasionally you'll have the pedestrian overpass over, in this case at Northside Drive. On the top, the viaduct, you have the long bridge, 25-plus clearance for the entire limits, but you don't have those opportunities for those ramps. So is there a way to combine the two? And that's what we're calling the hybrid concept, which we're looking at now. So again, this one still provides ramps. We're looking at how best to consolidate the ramp locations. So instead of having ramps skewed or staggered, everything's located at the same position to minimize the amount of walls. Again, still providing that increased vertical clearance and also looking with business owners in the communities to find out how best can we locate these potential vistas across the US 19 corridor so that it maximizes the business and the community value, while still managing the traffic volumes and maintaining the connectivity and the access from the elevated roadway to the side streets. So that's what we've got here. Again, it's still a early view of this concept, but we would still provide the higher clearance and maximize the connectivity in a way that allows us to reduce the volumes on the frontage lanes. So what does it look like? Here's a quick comparison between the two options. Again, on the left side would be what a hybrid typical section would look like. This is the 25-foot vertical clearance from the travel lanes to the bottom of the bridge structure. And again, you can see off in the distance, no walls. It continues elevated as far as the eye can see. On the right side, this is the U-turn overpass that's under construction today at Boy Scout Road. Again, we do have the at-grade crossing. We've got RFBs to accommodate a safe pedestrian crossing, but you can see it's the 16-foot clearance, and you can see the MSC wall just on the other side. So total bridge length for this rendering on the right is around 250 feet, give or take, versus, you know, upwards of 1,000, 2,000 feet for the hybrid concept on the left. So that's a real high-level overview of some of the things that we're considering. Right now, we're finalizing the traffic volumes, looking at how best to accommodate this level of service, if there's ability to eliminate any of those ramps or if they're all needed, and then what exactly is the ultimate cost. We're getting ready, as Whit mentioned, I believe, to go out to City of Tarpon Springs end of this month, and also some other community engagement. Want to make sure we get feedback from all of you. So that we can incorporate it into our analysis and incorporate anything into the cost or what the ultimate report ends up being. So
if I could just add a little bit to what Jason just said, and thank you for the presentation, Jason. So we have the meeting with Tarpon Springs at the end of this month. What we're going to structure this conversation with the public and the business community around these trade-offs, these different considerations, and one will be what do you think about these two concepts, and what do you think about the frontage roads, and how should they function in an ideal world? Because we have current conditions where people use the frontage roads that were built further south, sometimes to bypass congestion on the main line, and they get over on the frontage roads and they make up time and then they merge back. And to me, frontage roads should be primarily about local property access, slower speeds, ingress and egress, and that's where your multimodal activity happens. When we were out there with the Florida Department of Transportation walking the frontage roads a few years ago, We actually saw a rollover crash from somebody making one of these U-turns at a high rate of speed, and then they just tumbled over right in front of us. Good to see that in front of the DOT folks. And then every bicyclist we saw was up on the sidewalk, not in the bike lane. So we know there's some changes that we want to make to the frontage roads. So part of this is getting feedback on what those frontage roads look like, how they function. The business community in Palm Harbor, when we had a workshop in 2018 or 19 or so about this issue, they were very concerned about the visual and access restrictions to the existing businesses that line US 19. There are a lot of restaurants, there are a lot of retail shops. A lot of it is mom and pop retail, not chains. There are chains, but mostly it's not chains. And when I inadvertently said, well, you know, there's going to be redevelopment because that's what we're seeing to the south, there was loud boos throughout the room. So people were nervous about change to redevelopment in that area. So we want to kind of get a sense of how you envision land use to develop along this corridor. I know Pinellas County Housing and Community Development has been very interested in how land use might evolve in this corridor as well. The other thing we want to get feedback on is how do you activate that space underneath, as Jason talked about. And I am not the pickleball proponent. Somebody else mentioned pickleball, but since the Tampa Bay Rays have now dropped their new uniforms with the skate logo on there, maybe a skate park, I don't know. But there could be some things that are done under there if there's demand, if there's need, if there's not adequate facilities in the community. So we want to get feedback on that. And then the location of the ramps and how many ramps, because that will drive the discussion about the frontage roads. Did I cover that adequately? But we want to kind of set this up for workstations where people can kind of go and deal with these specific issues differently. And then when we meet with the business community, what we found to be really successful the last time we engaged was small roundtable conversations where it's 10, 15 people around a table, and you can have more of a free-flow exchange of information and ideas, going to breakfast meetings, meeting the business community on their terms where they're comfortable. So some of that's going to be flexible and in response to what they tell us they want to do, but we will schedule at least 1 or 2 public workshops and invite people to come out to the meeting. And I want to clarify, there's no funding in place for design or for construction in the 5-year work program for this section of roadway. So we're probably going to have to do it all over again when we start getting funding in place for design and design begins. So just a heads up.
Commissioner Eggers, do you have a question or a comment?
Just a comment. First of all, I think the idea of getting feedback from the merchant or the people that own property on that area is important. Giving a presentation, historical perspective, the alternatives, and then have breakout sessions to get ideas. Making sure that you give them perspective going in, that this is just to get preliminary feedback. This is not, because, and you said 1 or 2 presentations or 1 or 2 feedbacks. This is such a major thing, and it spans a long period of time that, you know, we don't want missteps. So every couple of years, I think you need to revisit because it's still going to be on the long-range plan. That's part of the discussion. And things change. 2 thoughts. One is, we had some of these discussions before. Pasco County had a different version of their US 19 than we did. They're an east-west county. We're a north-south county. So we were, you know, flying along thinking we're going to fly. And then when you get into there, they were almost moving to a safe streets program. So it's like, okay, we're going to move traffic like crazy up into Pasco, and then you're going to come to a screeching stop. So I think we need to think about that too as we're kind of, I guess, downgrading the thing as you go north. So that's one thing. And then there was a study that was done, a marketing study that I would like to see updated on the changing dynamic of the retail market. So that in the old days, it was very much a visual drive-bys, you know, kind of you respond to visual. And in today's retail, it was more destination-oriented. And the more businesses that are destination-oriented, it's not as important for that, you know, like the McDonald's drive-by, it triggers, oh, stop, move in. It's, I'm going to a place, I don't care where it is. I know where it is. So I think that study that was proposed, I don't know if the county did it or we did it or somebody did it. It needs to be updated for sure so that when we're talking to our residents, that change or that move, if it's still in play, also needs to be a part of that presentation before they break out in that very, very preliminary feedback sessions that we're getting from the public. I read this, I just threw this at a meeting on Monday night, and I got quite the looks. My eyes opened like, I just said, nothing's happening, just relax. There's going to be lots of chance for feedback, not 1 or 2 meetings. So anyway, just some thoughts. Thank you.
Where were you when you mentioned it?
I was in Ozona.
Oh, yeah, well.
And just to clarify, the reason I said 1 or 2 meetings is what we're trying to do now is get some guidance for adopting the long-range transportation plan and what's financially feasible and what's not financially feasible. And that's why we need the cost estimates. So we will be bringing this back to this board to incorporate into the long-range plan. But absolutely, that's just one step in the process before we get into design and all that other stuff.
But I think from the public's perspective, they need to trust that process. And that's, we've had some issues with that along the way, so just be careful.
Are we good? Did you have something, Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Jason, thank you for that presentation. Very interesting concept. You may not know the answer to this question. I realize every project is different, but generally speaking, between those 2 alternatives, which costs more and what takes longer to construct? Is there a difference in those 2 things?
So the challenge, obviously, the cost more of the viaduct or the hybrid option would be more expensive than the traditional option. Both of them require, all 3, I guess, options are intended to remain primarily within existing right-of-way. We'll still need right-of-way for ponds, but that's fairly equal between all 3 alternatives. Cost-wise, probably about 50% more expensive for the viaduct over the traditional. Again, numbers are still preliminary and still looking at what exactly we want to include, what community features need to be included within that concept. But roughly about a 50% premium. And then the hybrid might be a little more, might be a little less because, less bridge structure, but then you bring in wall, you bring in embankment associated with it. So really, as we finalize those ramp locations, the lengths of the walls and the ramps, then we're able to nail down that amount. As far as construction time, I'd say about the same, possibly a little shorter for the viaduct. Once you can build the frontage roads, but the problem is you still have to do all the drainage and the utility inputs. So on the existing US 19 projects today, the first 2.5 to 3 years are really doing the utility and the drainage along the right-of-way line, which would be needed for any of these projects at all, to begin with.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gerard?
Thank you. And thank you for that presentation. I just wish we could do all of this quicker, but I suppose taking a good long look at it is a good idea too. On the hybrid on the hybrid solution,
Yep.
with going up and then coming down a grade and then going up again, has anybody looked at the possibility of staying elevated and having ramps come down from the elevated version rather than going up and down and up and down?
We have looked into that. The challenge with that is when we do have the bridge staying elevated. Let me go back to the typical section. So under this alternative, we would still need to maintain the 3 lanes elevated in each direction. So the ramps need to be built to the outside of that. You can see to the outside of the elevated roadway is the frontage lanes below. So then we begin to, when we have to keep everything elevated, when you have the ramp structure, we need to have shoulders on each side. It's not just a lane, it's the travel lane and then the shoulders and the barriers to keep it separated from the other movements as you go up or down in elevation. That pushes these frontage lanes even further outside, which will most likely require right-of-way along the corridor. So again, that's something that could be looked at, but one of our goals was to try to minimize the impacts to the businesses along the corridor minimize the right-of-way impacts along the corridor. And by going up and down, but not up and down at the same time, you're able to minimize those right-of-way needs.
Yeah, I understand, and it certainly makes sense with that explanation. But I do know that when you're going up and down with a limited sight distance, traffic tends to back up, people get nervous, they slow down as they're coming to the top and all that. And so it causes, even though the traffic is moving in, a limited access, the traffic does tend to back up, and you see that in every instance around here where you have that up and down.
Yep.
And if there was a way to perhaps just have an off-ramp without that, I think the traffic, especially along a very extended, elevated viaduct, I think the traffic would move much more smoothly.
Yeah. One of the opportunities we do have just south of Tarpon Avenue, the right-of-way is wider. So in that location, you do have the opportunity to do that. One of our thoughts was having a viaduct that would continue to north of Tarpon Avenue, but have ramps south of it. So that is something where we could accommodate the elevated section remaining elevated with having the ramps.
Anything we do is better than having 7.5 miles with no exit at all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I cannot imagine having pickleball there, but if you can convince pickleball players that that's a great place, then it might be a done deal already. So I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't believe the amount of pickleball players, and it's like exponential growth. So anyway.
So is the board comfortable with us taking this show on the road and getting feedback at this point? Just kind of looking for consensus? Okay.
Well, I don't know what the alternative would be.
Not do it. All right. Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jason. All right. Gosh, I'm scared to go on to the next one. Tina, do we have any more? Which? No. What? Seriously? Hey there.
She'll be back.
We're going to do our next one. Go ahead.
All right, well, good afternoon, board members. I'm over here because I'll be driving this part of the presentation. We are bringing an item back to you. This is 34th Street. It's a resurfacing project that includes a couple of different elements, safety and accessibility enhancements along the roadway, and a bus and turn lane repurposing of the lanes out there on 34th Street South. The board is being asked today by the Florida Department of Transportation to affirm its support for the bus and turn lane component. We want to specifically have that vote because in the documents, in the project description, and in our transportation improvement program, officially this has been listed as urban corridor improvements. I don't even know what urban corridor improvements means in every instance because it means different things. So we felt it was wise to have this action for the board to consider. This project is under construction, has been under construction for some time. This is a partnership that was initiated by the City of St. Petersburg and Forward Pinellas, and then subsequently PSTA to incorporate these different elements into the 34th Street project. And I do have Evan Morey here from the City of St. Petersburg, and we have staff from PSTA as well if you have questions for either of them. The intent of this partnership was to identify ways to reflect the changes that are happening in the 34th Street corridor as it evolves from more of a highway-oriented commercial corridor to an area of future residential growth and development. And the city anticipated this for some time. It's part of their comprehensive plan. It's part of adopted documents that anticipated higher density development occurring in this area. It was a pretty underutilized part of the city for a long time. The intent was to add wider sidewalks, safer crossings, reduce the speed limit out there, and then have mechanisms to improve and enhance the service reliability, frequency, and speed of transit service. I just want to back up a little bit and remind you for the last several years, we've had the Advantage Pinellas framework, where in the center of everything we think about is community, environment, and economic opportunity for people. There's kind of a three-legged stool here where we work on improving traffic flow and managing congestion, enhancing transit service and transit connections, and creating safer trail networks and safer streets. And we talk about all those things here at Forward Pinellas. But we have to recognize that we have a unique context in Pinellas County where we are the second smallest county in the state and the most densely populated county in the state. And we are a redeveloping county, and we have a mission to increase multimodal transportation opportunity. The goal is also to connect people to jobs and housing that's affordable. That's been a cornerstone of our Advantage Pinellas plan, strengthen existing communities and prepare for change, that redevelopment that we've all talked about, and commit to shared actions and shared outcomes whenever possible. And just a reminder that we are projecting 120,000 more residents in this county by the year 2050. The project is a 2-mile section of 34th Street South. It has 6 lanes with a median today. The speed limit is posted as 45 miles an hour. It is an FDOT maintained roadway. It's US 19. This is in the Skyway Marina District, an established neighborhood business district by the city of St. Petersburg. It is also part of the South St. Petersburg Community Redevelopment Area, which is a partnership between the county and the city of St. Petersburg. PSTA operates a couple of routes here. The Route 90 is a commuter route and doesn't operate with a great deal of frequency, and it only serves a portion of 34th Street. Route 34 is the main trunk line route. It is long been one of the most productive routes in the system. It has a pretty high level of frequency compared to most of the other routes in the system. And it's, I think, third in ridership or something like that, but it's in the top tier of transit ridership with more than 1 million riders annually. The context of the decision, as I indicated, is to advance safety and accessibility for all users. This has always been a safety project with a transit component. It was also intended to advance the goals of the Skyway Marina District Master Plan, which is an adopted plan that was developed and approved with a lot of public input in 2014-2015 timeframe. And that plan was the basis for the request to incorporate the bus and turn lane and other elements of the plan. And this plan was also intended to enable easier ingress and egress from side streets and from businesses, because the intent of the lane repurposing and the reduction in the speed limit would be to facilitate that in and out of businesses. Cars will still be able to use the turn lane, and we've heard complaints from residents about the inability or the difficulty of sometimes merging into high-speed traffic. Just a little bit of history. In 2017, we awarded our first Complete Streets construction grant to the city of St. Petersburg. Back then, the amount was up to $1 million. We awarded the full $1 million for this, which doesn't cover the full cost, but it is a complement to the overall project. And it was paired with the resurfacing project, which makes for an economy of scale to get everything done all at one time in one construction cycle. This also complements the city's Complete Streets implementation plan, which it has adopted, and several of those bicycle boulevard streets intersect with 34th Street. And as I mentioned, it's recognition that the corridor is changing from that suburban highway commercial into a more urban context. These graphics were taken from the preliminary concept, and they are not reflective of the actual design, but they're pretty close. The image on the right, on the top, is the existing conditions where you see the 6 lanes, and the image on the bottom is the modification. And just to clarify, where you see the bus in that curb lane will also be able to be used by automobile traffic for as long as they're making a turn in and out of a business, just like on the First Avenues today. PSTA has committed to introducing a new limited stop express service to complement the local. So it wouldn't replace the local 34, which operates about every 20 minutes or so, but this would be a new limited stop express service that would go all the way up to the Grand Central Station, where the Sunrunner is located, and all the way south to the Eckerd College area. In addition to that, one of the components of this original design was to mix red pigment in with the asphalt as it was being resurfaced, like what was done on the First Avenues. That red pigment is very expensive and was a source of concern from the department when they got into construction. They went through and did a value engineering assessment, and that red pigment component has been removed. So it would now be signs and pavement markings, just like you see for the shared lane markings or bicycle lanes or anything like that on our roadways. And then you would have signs. So a very low-cost treatment, ultimately. The curb lanes on 6-lane arterials move about 60% of the traffic of the other 2 lanes, because if you think about it, when you're traveling and you're trying to go fast or trying to go a long distance, you don't get in the curb lane because you're going to get behind a bus or you're going to get behind a turning car or a merged car, and that's the slow lane. So in traffic engineering, that's an accepted consideration when you widen a road from, say, 4 to 6 lanes. You're not going to get as much out of that new 6th lane as you would from the other 2. I know you can't read this. I can barely read this, but I did want to just highlight that the timeline of actions began around 2017 and continued. It was 2018 when PSTA requested the bus and turn lane to be part of the project. We did have letters of support at the key decision point from the Skyway Marina District. They have since sent a letter saying that they are rethinking their decision and no longer support the bus and turn lane. That letter was received last year. We also had letters of support from Eckerd College as well. When PSTA requested the bus and turn lane as part of the project, DOT's response to that was, if we build this, then we need to see a higher level of service commitment from PSTA. And then PSTA subsequently wrote a letter saying that they would introduce the limited stop express bus service upon construction. So I wanted to make sure that sequence of events was clear. First, we requested the bus and turn lane, then the department requested the higher level of service, and then the PSTA committed to the higher level of service. So I'm not sure we would have gotten the higher level of service without the bus and turn lane being part of the project. The board has taken multiple votes on this in terms of making this project a priority, adopting it into the Transportation Improvement Program when the department announces its tentative work program. And there is an important element here between the department's work program and our TIP. Our TIP is our document. And if we have a project in the work program that we don't support, we don't include it in the TIP and it doesn't go forward. We hope that never happens. We hope they're in perfect alignment, and in this case they are. I want to talk a little bit about efficient transportation for all users, because that's what we focus here at Forward Pinellas. We think of everybody who's using our transportation system. Again, we're building it upon the adopted Skyway Marina District Plan, which is still in effect, and it was adopted by the St. Petersburg City Council. And that was to create a 34th Street that's more of a destination corridor with more restaurants and services. That's a key part of the plan. A growth in higher density residential and mixed-use development, and transitioning away from that campus-style, single-use suburban area. This is also sort of a front door to Eckerd College. Eckerd College doesn't immediately front 34th Street, but it's not far off on the Bayway. And when we heard from Eckerd College, they expressed a desire to have more destinations nearby for their students, and also to have better transportation options into existing destinations that are desired by students, such as the Central Avenue corridor. And I want to say that 34th Street right now is a really successful roadway for automobile traffic. You can fly down that road. It's very easy to drive. There's very little congestion. It operates at about a level of service A or B condition for most of the day. It functions really well. This road does not function well for people on foot or on bicycle. There's not very good facilities, and you don't feel very comfortable crossing it. Transit service is reasonably good. As I said, it's better than a lot of service in Pinellas County, but it can be much better, and this gives a little bit of travel time savings for those transit users. We don't believe there's any sacrifice for vehicle traffic with this configuration, because again, that outside curb lane is at a reduced efficiency compared to the other lanes. And we have traffic volumes, as I'll demonstrate here in a minute, that are way below the service volume at level of service D. And I included this quote 2 times. I liked it so much, I didn't mean to, but this is from the board member of the Skyway Marine District who talks about this becoming more of a destination corridor. Yes.
Microphone, please, Commissioner Eggers, thank you.
There was a couple slides back that we talked about the chain of events. And so, again, a Safe Streets project was the concept. Along came PSTA asking for a bus and turn lane. FDOT then said, well, then we want more service. Those 2 things weren't a prerequisite for the project to be done. The project was starting without that.
The resurfacing was scheduled regardless.
And the downsizing the lanes, slowing the traffic down, if it's a safety thing. And then the piece that, you know, again, I'm sure there'll be some backing up from the position, but at one of the PSTA meetings, the person who asked for it to begin with said he did no longer want that, didn't need it, didn't need the turn lane, the exclusive lane. They're still going to have buses that go down that lane and drop people off. There's still people that are going to get, unfortunately, stuck behind a bus because they're stopping. And so that most people would try to avoid that anyway. But the comment was made at the time, again, to this chain of events that you're talking about. Fast forward to recently, they don't need that turn lane. They don't need that exclusive bat lane. They still have service. They're still going to use that lane for dropping people off. The project can still go forward. The safety pieces can still be added, slowing the traffic down, you know, making it a safer place. I just want that's a part of all of this. Because all of this project, I don't know that we're talking about this whole project being canned. We're talking about this one lane issue that's really raised to a different level. And I don't think it's much to do about nothing, especially since the requester doesn't need it anymore. So I just, again, go on and on about all this, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's the issue that we're talking about.
Well, I will respond to that by saying that this is a partnership decision, and one agency can't unilaterally make a decision on a design change like this.
That was the agency that asked for it.
The bus and turn lane, in our view, and staff's view from the city of St. Petersburg, is that it is a complement and component of the safety project.
That's not how it went, okay? It's not how it went. Just don't revisit the way it was done. It was they asked for it.
They did.
They said more traffic, more bus service, and then now they said we, the bus service company, don't need that. That's what we were told.
That was 2 months ago, but
Hold on.
So things change in 2 months. I get it.
Hold on, just one moment, please. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. I respect that Commissioner Eggers wants to weigh in at this point. I think several people have plenty to say. I would really like to see the rest of the presentation.
Say again?
I would like to hear the rest of the presentation. I don't know if we're ready to get into a discussion.
No, we're
at
not.
this point, or if we could finish.
Correct.
I'd like to.
He's gonna finish, so just hold on for 1 minute.
Thank you.
Commissioner Scott, while we're pausing, do you have comments, questions, or whatever?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Are sidewalks included in this project right now?
yes, sir.
So it's going to widen the sidewalks?
Right. They'll be 6 to 10 feet and mostly 10 feet along the corridor.
Are bike lanes currently on this?
No bike lanes. So bikes would be using the 10-foot wide sidewalk.
All right, thank you.
Okay, please continue.
All right. Okay. So additional development on 34th Street. That's been the big concern that's been raised about rethinking the bus and turn lane. In 2019, we did a lane repurposing traffic study that forecasted traffic out to 2040. We used our projections, working with the city of St. Petersburg to anticipate that. We brought that lane repurposing study back here. At that point, we knew the bus and turn lane was part of it. Unanimously approved by this board was the lane repurposing study. We've continued to monitor traffic and crashes in this corridor since that lane repurposing study, and conditions have really been about the same. The number of crashes The 5-year period has changed, but it's about the same number of crashes. The traffic volume is still at about 25,000. There's been an actual negative growth in traffic out there since 2019. The city of St. Petersburg reviewed a traffic impact study for Skyway Village, which is the previous Ceridian site that is being developed. You can see a little illustration of what that development might look like. That was in September 23, and they did an analysis of background and project traffic through the year 2033, and they showed that significant road capacity remains, even with the Ceridian development and all the development that you see being built out there since 2019 when we did our analysis. The context of the corridor, 34th Street South conditions. I still don't really know what we're calling all these communities, but they were environmental justice areas, they were equity areas, now they're communities of concern. But we have those areas of higher poverty, of lower automobile ownership on both sides of the roadway. It is also in our high injury road network as defined through our Safe Streets Pinellas action plan. Most of the crashes are concentrated at 54th Avenue South and 22nd Avenue South. However, we did have a fatality at, I believe, 38th Avenue South. So we've had fatalities and serious injuries throughout the corridor. The transit really functions as a system, and I guess this is one of the arguments that we make in favor of the bus and turn lane, is we've spent $40 million on the Sunrunner project, which is operating and doing pretty much what it was supposed to do. This will increase the value of that $40 million investment by providing a direct, faster connection to the Sunrunner. The 34th Street bus and turn lanes is an incredibly low cost, value-added connection to our transit network. And I want to say that right next to it is I-275, which is a priority of this board for high-speed regional mobility. We have been successful in getting funding in place for construction of additional managed toll lanes that will come down to 38th Avenue North, and the operational improvements, lane continuity, and additional extension of those managed toll lanes is in design, and we expect to have funding in place in the next few years to take that all the way down to 54th Avenue South to improve regional traffic flow and mobility. From a safety standpoint, we had 700 crashes between 2018 and 2023. Some of this other data is from our previous report, but again, it was pretty consistent. The graphic is from the 2019 report. But you can see 41% of all crashes were at those two intersections. 50% of the bike ped crashes were at those two intersections, and again, the 3 fatalities. So about 148 crashes per year. Aggressive driving was a factor in 30% of those straight ahead crashes and 70% of the left turn crashes. So we believe that this project will have an impact on reducing the amount of aggressive driving and speeding that happens in the corridor. Average annual daily traffic, again, negative traffic growth since 2019. The consultant for that Ceridian traffic study assumed a 1% growth factor in traffic to the year 2033. The traffic volumes are less than half of the level of service volume threshold, which is effectively the capacity of the roadway. Again, it's about 25,000 to 26,000 vehicles per day. That road, as it's designed today, carries in excess of 55,000 vehicles. That would be the service flow or capacity to achieve a level of service D standard, which is the standard for the state of Florida transportation network. And just a reminder that we are spending roughly $4 billion in transportation capacity projects for cars that are directly affecting Pinellas County between the newly opened Gateway Expressway, which is awesome, by the way, the Howard Franklin Bridge and the West Shore Interchange, all directly benefiting car traffic, I-275 express lanes, the section to the south is in design, US 19 north from Main Street to Curlew, you heard the presentation about taking that up to the Pasco line, and then we even have the Gandy Corridor PD&E underway and expect to see that project begin moving through the pipeline to widen out the Gandy corridor. So $4 billion or so just in those projects alone. Just to revisit the public workshop, some of the comments and questions that we've had is that we haven't done enough public involvement out here. The city of St. Petersburg did a lot of public outreach and engagement as part of the master plan for the Skyway Marina District. There have been a lot of small group meetings and one-on-one meetings, but we were required as part of the lane repurposing study to have a public meeting, to have a public workshop. The Tampa Bay Times covered that. This is the headline in days leading up to that meeting, so we've got a lot of free media coverage of this. We had 65 participants, which generally at a public meeting, that's pretty good to get that kind of an attendance at a you come to us meeting. We had survey respondents. 46% of the participants were from the Skyway Manor District in the neighborhood. And then again, I mentioned the other small group meetings as well, and there's that quote. A little hard to see, but in general, the public was very supportive of the pedestrian activated crosswalks at multiple locations, the wide sidewalks on both sides of the street, and the conversion of the outside lanes for bus service. There was support for that as well from the meeting participants. Here's a list of the most important issues. Motorist behavior, very important, is VI on the left, and not important or no opinion on the right. So you can see a lot of people are very concerned about how motorists use the corridor today, safe accommodations for all users, lack of retail and shopping and establishments. The transit component on here, maybe on the next slide, wasn't as supported, but it was still a majority of participants. Additional improvements and strategies, you can see here, bus stop amenities, access management, provision of public gathering spaces. Adding vehicle lanes was not supported. We did ask that. So just some observations, and then I'll turn it over to the board, and I know we have some people who want to comment from the public. I say at every meeting that community and agency partnerships are extremely important to achieve publicly expressed desired outcomes. And so we've entered into this partnership with the city, with FDOT, and with PSTA, and it takes time. I wish we could do projects in 3 or 4 years, but sometimes it takes longer. And this one, because of the pandemic, took a little longer than it might have otherwise. We try to make cost-effective use of the dollars we put into a project, and so combining this with the resurfacing, incorporating the bus and turn lane, incorporating the wide sidewalks, all makes it for a more efficient endeavor. And I'm a big believer in measuring twice and cutting once when we do these things. Some challenges we have is the state of Florida and the Tampa Bay area in particular are growing like crazy. And rapid statewide and regional growth, and I heard this yesterday, we have a state transportation engineering meeting here in St. Petersburg. It puts pressure on our long-term plans. We have a different population group now than we did 5 years ago. People are moving into this area. There is a lot of pushback about growth and redevelopment. We have to revisit our comprehensive plans if we want to change the path we're on. But it's a factor. Heightened concerns about repurposing existing general purpose lanes. We saw that in the last legislative session. I think there's been a backlash about the implementation of the Sunrunner project, and this project is benefiting from that backlash, you might say. And we've talked about this a few months ago, and I think Ford Pinellas staff recognizes that we need to consider new ways to engage the public and keep the public informed as projects move through the work program from planning to design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. And we just had that conversation about US 19. It's going to take a while to get this through, and we're prepared to bring a policy back to the board this summer that will clarify what we'll do as staff level in conjunction with our partners. And we just want to make sure whatever policy we adopt is okay with the FDOT and that they'll be willing to work with us to implement it. But I just say that because I think for this project and for others, there's always room for improvement where you can keep the public better informed of exactly what you're doing as you're going along. So I'll entertain any questions you have of me. The action before you today is to affirm support for 34th Street bus and turn lanes as a component of this project or take other action as desired.
Any questions or concerns over here? Richie, I haven't heard you say a thing all day. What's wrong with you? Are you sick?
No, nothing's wrong with me at all. Just, I guess, taking it all in. I do have an opinion. I mean, I don't have any questions necessarily. Actually, I do have one question. Since we're not doing the red pigment, effort to put in and remove this seems quite minimal. I'm assuming, you know, any sort of change is not a huge one.
No, I mean, it's removing the signs and covering up the pavement with paint or with, you know, whatever treatment they want to do. We just got through doing that on the Pinellas Trail, so it's not that difficult.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that there was no other barriers in the way. Are the lanes, what's enforcement look like without the red pigment? Is it more difficult, or?
I mean, I think from a self-enforcement standpoint, it may be not as successful as having red pigment or red paint in the lane. But from a law enforcement standpoint, I'm not sure that law enforcement is actively enforcing the use of the bus and turn lane on the First Avenues regularly. Evan may know differently about that. But my sense is that very few people are being pulled over for driving through on that. But it's more of a self-policing effort.
Okay, yeah, and I've seen bus and turn lanes that don't have the red pigment plenty of times in various locations before, not locally, but further afield. You know, the only other thing I'd have to add to it is I'm very supportive of this. I travel this road very often. I live just a little further north of the Grand Central bus station, right off of 34th Street, and I disagree with one thing Commissioner Eggers said, which is that the bus and turn lane's not a part of the safety aspect of this. Having fewer cars driving alongside the sidewalk, it makes a big difference to me when I'm walking or riding my bike near 34th Street. Feels a lot more comfortable, a lot safer for me as a pedestrian near the road, and crossing the road. I mean, I cross it just north of Central Avenue, and it's more narrow even than it is further south where the lanes are wider, and I hate crossing it. It's absolutely awful. It's a terrible experience, and I don't feel safe doing it. And so I think having less traffic on those lanes on the outside are important to me when it comes to safety. And so I'm strongly in support, and I know the city has sent a letter. City staff's here today to answer any questions, and I'm sure at the very least a supermajority of my colleagues on council have positive feelings towards it as well, and I'm sure you'll hear from more of them. So thank you for calling me out, Chair.
You're welcome. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just comments here. So I like the expanded sidewalks. That's definitely a plus, and I think lower speed limits make sense to enhance safety. And just my opinion here is that, you know, PSTA could, I mean, they could start express service anytime that they wanted to, and they probably should. I mean, it's a corridor that does well for transit service. But to me, it seems like a build it and they will come approach rather than have them start the service and then see how it goes and then make adjustments as needed down the road. I mean, density is increasing along that corridor, which are potential new transit riders, but it's also definitely going to bring more cars. And also commercial trucks use that corridor as well. And I mean, let's face it, once those lanes get repurposed, they're never going to be repurposed back to anything else. I mean, that's what they're going to be. So I would prefer that we start it and see how it goes and then make adjustments as we need to down the road. Because just, you know, having a lane dedicated for bus and turn, and you're going to have a bus come down there every 15 minutes or so, to me you're leaving a tremendous amount of roadway capacity on the table. So that's just my opinion of it. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. I would like to have Evan Morey say a few words about this. He is the City of St. Petersburg's Transportation and Parking Director, has been hands-on with this project from the beginning. This is a project that's important to the City of St. Petersburg. And I know with this group, whenever we have an item come up, we tend to lean in and listen to the ones who are from the area where the project is happening. I can say that this project, which is in St. Petersburg, is needed for St. Petersburg residents. It's not about build it and they will come. It's about accommodating what we already have and doing it in a way that's more efficient and, number one, most importantly, safer. Because this is a very busy street. We need to have all of this working together that ultimately does create greater pedestrian and bicycle safety, along with creating a more efficient experience for our bus riders. We've received a ton of letters from different types of stakeholders expressing the different ways that they feel that this is important. So what I ask of my colleagues here is that you really think about what is this, who is this for? It is for our St. Petersburg residents and those of us who are from St. Petersburg really have that roll up your sleeves, boots on the ground experience, understanding what our residents want and need. I have seen through the presentation and through other documents that this is not something that is going to exacerbate any kind of traffic congestion. It's actually going to help with that. Anyone who has ever been stuck behind a bus in the right lane or, go down 60. How many of you hang out and cruise all the way down 60 in the right lane? No, you get over one lane because everyone is turning right or there's a bus. Why not give all of that its own lane so that everyone else can go ahead at a regular speed? That's what this creates here. By designating it, it is actually going to help everybody move more efficiently. There is a history here of groups in the past and stakeholders in the past who were in complete agreement with this project. Some people have changed, but the problem has not. And the reason I would like Evan to speak to the group is to kind of show us how this has evolved, anything that you can add to what Whit has already said, and what it means for us today.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a number of years before I spoke to this group. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity. I'm Evan Moore. I'm Director of Transportation and Parking Management for the City of St. Pete. I've been with the city and the department for 19 years, and my personal experience informs my professional opinion about this project as well, because I've lived within a half mile of the corridor for about 26 out of the last 30 years. So I drive it a lot. I don't like to walk it. I tried walking it recently, and it was very uncomfortable, to Councilmember Floyd's point. But the one thing I'd like to point out is that I did participate heavily in the Sky Marina District Plan formulation. That plan includes improving transit in the district. It includes improving transit on that corridor. It specifically calls out evaluating a dedicated, like fully dedicated transit lane on this street. And it says if that's not feasible, then look at maybe some bus turnout lanes. But it says explore the dedication of a transit lane on 34th Street. So while PSTA may have asked for it in 2018, I would say that the City of St. Pete asked for it first. We asked for it in 2014 when City Council unanimously adopted the Skyway Marina District Plan after a lot of work. I sat in a lot of those meetings. There were 60 people on a steering committee. So anyways, it goes back a long way. And I think that when PSTA said they didn't need it, they really meant that they could still operate the service without it. But the service would be much more efficient with that lane. And then it does help with the safety components. And it helps validate the reduction of the speed limit to 40 miles an hour through that design change. So Mayor Welch still supports this project, and he was in one of your seats when the vote was taken before, when it was in front of Fort Pinellas in 2019. He said at the time something to the effect of, this is a perfect corridor for it. And I can tell you that he approaches things with a skeptical eye towards lane elimination, but he supported this project then, and he still supports it. So I'm available for other questions, but that's what I'd like to say for now.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Maury? Anybody? Councilor Floyd.
Thank you. You mentioned something that keyed me in, that the speed limit reduction is validated by the bus and turn lanes existence. We've had conversations before about, can we just lower the speed limit? And there's rules about like the design of the roadway and what it's designed, what the travel speed it's designed for is. And right now, that's a really wide road that is really clear for people to go right through. Does it even feel like we could lower the speed limit if we didn't have the bus and turn lane? Because there'd be no impediments at all to a high speed, towards high speed movement on the road without that.
I know there's some FDOT people in the room. They might need to weigh in on this, but my understanding is that if we went to FDOT and said, hey, just lower the speed limit to 40, they would do a traffic study. They would find that people are driving in excess of 45 miles an hour and say, it's not justifiable to drop it down to 40. So if you go in with a new project and you do design changes along with the speed limit change to help reduce how fast drivers want to go, then you can reduce it. And that's my understanding of how we're able to get down to 40 miles an hour in this section.
Okay, thanks. That's my understanding as well. It looks like what you got.
I can confirm that. I think as part of the design, the center and outside lane, not the bus and turn lane, have been reduced in dimension from 12 feet down to maybe 10 feet or 11 feet. I'm not exactly sure. But it was that and the bus and turn lane that justified the 40. And what DOT has told us is they will evaluate that. And once things are up and operating, they could consider even lowering it further. But that would be down the road, and that's not on the table for today. So it'd be a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay, thank you for that clarifying information. It's a common question we get from constituents all the time is like, can you just lower the speed limit on this road? And there's always a hurdle, it feels like, when it comes to road design. So thanks for that clarification and providing that bit of information, because I think that's pretty crucial to the safety component of the project. Thanks.
Madam Chair, I know we have some people who want to speak from the public, so I don't know if you want to keep having board discussion or have public input.
All right, first of all, anybody from the board have any comments or questions? Yes, Mayor Will.
I think Commissioner Scott said it very well earlier, and I would just echo those comments, and I do not support a dedicated bus lane.
Okay. Councilor Burke, did you have something?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Several comments. First, I'll echo your own comments at our last meeting, how this county is in dire need of an overall mass transit plan and severely lacking in having one. Having said that, I think this particular plan isn't helping at all to accommodate what you brought up at our last meeting. If you give me the benefit of my entire career in law enforcement, I can tell you that traffic will be worse if you take away this lane. It's going to go from 3 to 2, and the numbers that were just up here said 3,500 cars per hour at the peak, which means if you take away one lane, that's 1,000 cars out of that lane have to move into the other 2 lanes, so you've almost doubled the volume in those 2 lanes. I've driven this road hundreds of times. You have Gibbs High just north of there, so you have a lot of traffic in the morning. Kids going to school at Gibbs. Now they're all going to be lined up trying to get to school. So what's going to happen is if you do it, the 2 lanes that are now there, when you cross 22nd, are going to turn into a 3-lane raceway because everyone's late and way backed up, and they're going to step on the gas when they're going north towards Central. So I don't think it's going to help safety on the other side of 22nd. Maybe it will on the south side, but certainly not on the north side. If you're southbound on 34th Street and you get to 22nd and you're in the curb lane, you can't keep going because it's a bus lane on the other side of 22nd. So that will,
It's a bus and turn lane, so cars can still use it.
but if you can't cross 22nd, you'll be into the bus lane.
You can still use it if you're turning.
How will you go south if you're in the curb lane north of 22nd? How will you drive
There won't
south?
be a prohibition from you continuing through that intersection if your turn is just beyond 22nd, for instance.
So, but you mostly will have to get over into the center lane as you're driving south on 34th Street.
Again, there's not a lot of enforcement, but I think if I were getting into a lane to make a right turn, I would want to get there well in advance before I had to make that right turn. So this wouldn't force you to move over to the center lane just to get back over.
No, but if you go by Renaissance Barbershop, is it still there? I don't know if Renaissance Barbershop is still there. Southbound on the west side of 34th Street, before you get to 22nd, I'm driving in the curb lane. Now I get to 22nd and I can't go over there because it's a bus lane now. I got to get over. So all that traffic has to merge into the center lane in order to continue south. And I just, the PSTA saying they'll do the LX bus to Grand Central is great, but this bus lane only goes to 22nd. So it's like a half a promise to get people to the Grand Central faster. I think it's misguided would be the word I would use. It could be better than what it currently is planned. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public before I draw any conclusions.
Yeah, good idea. All right. We're good? We're here? Councilor Mohammed.
Microphone,
I'm
please.
trying to get there. Just give me a minute.
But everybody's making their determinations, and I don't want to make a determination until I hear from the public. And that's really what we're here for. So we've got people who've made conclusions, and we have not heard from anyone from the public other than the 100 emails we've gotten. So I'd like to hear from them first.
Okay, so we're going to pause, and we're going to, Tina, who do we have in the queue for public comment?
3 minutes, you need to run it. Madam Chair, Sharon Calvert.
Ms. Calvert, please come forward. Hello.
Good afternoon. I'm Sharon Calvert. I live in Tierra Verde. I'm speaking for myself, but I am president of the Tierra Verde Community Association. We already have a bus-only lane that we're dealing with today, the Sunrunner. And the Sunrunner, this is a fact sheet from when they were promoting it, expected 4,500 riders a day. The ridership has been tanking and is well below half of that ridership. You only have to look at the overall numbers for PSTA. Just look at them every month. They're going down. The Sunrunner in January was down almost 40%, in February almost 35%, and that's during a high seasonal time. So PSTA has already stated that they don't need this. I talked to Heather Sobush there after one of those meetings. You can use technology, much cheaper, but it's not needed. They don't have a service that requires a bat lane. Going back in time, and it was disingenuous that not included in the packet or the presentation is actually the Skyway Marina District opposition letter. And they state that traffic flow has already been impacted on 37th Street South. So what's happening is, and I remember David Gwynn saying this many years ago, traffic is like water. It seeps. So you take it off of a major highway and it goes into neighborhoods. That is not safety. Also, going back in time, I have, the minutes of a November 28th, 2018 meeting, operational analysis, that included the Skyway Marina District along with PSTA, FDOT, and St. Petersburg. There was skepticism back then, if you read through the minutes, about the bat lane, and this is 2018. This was prior to the 2019 one community workshop held in April of 2019 that I attended. And by the way, that survey was a push survey, and the only way that you could comment about the bat lane was in the comments. I have all the comments. There wasn't one comment supporting a bat lane. The meetings that were held, if you look at them, yes, there were a few meetings with the Skyway Marina District. To my knowledge today, they still oppose it. And in speaking with Mean Gao at FDOT about this, he was under the impression that the Skyway Marina District represented residents. It does not. It's kind of like a mini chamber of commerce. It promotes business activities along that corridor. I use that corridor almost every single day. I've used it when they've done the road, when they're doing the construction. I know how the traffic backs up when they take a lane out. So I ask that you please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tina?
Kelly Kirshner from Eckerd College.
Okay. Kelly, please come forward. Nice to see you again.
Thank you all very much. My name is Kelly Kirshner, Vice President and Dean of Eckerd College, was a board member for the Skyway Marina District from its inception, probably through about 2018. I wasn't aware that the board had made a vote, sent a letter, and somehow rescinded their support. We're here today to reaffirm our support for this, and I appreciate the openness to deliberation and understanding, hopefully, why stakeholders in the area still see this as a critically important project. If anything, we would say the conversation you're having right now is really limited and very narrow. If you listen to the conversation about this roadway just prior to us, 77,000 trips a day, and in this area we have 22,000 trips a day. If you go to where in a past life I was an elected official in Sarasota on a state road, US 41, it's only 4 lanes, they have close to 50,000 trips a day. And just put in a really extensive system of roundabouts, bike lanes, wide sidewalks to encourage the type of pedestrian activity that Councilmember Floyd, you're talking about. And why is it important to Eckerd College? I think Mr. Blanton referenced it. We have on any given day up to 5,000 constituents there, 2,000 students, 90% of them live on campus, 70% come from outside of the state of Florida. Hopefully, we always hope that a significant percentage do not bring cars here, and so they are on foot and on bike. And we would rather they not bring a car, they would rather not Uber, but would have the ability to bike and feel the same as, sorry to pick on you, it must be your day, Councilmember Floyd, but feel that comfort to actually go down that corridor and, God forbid, have a shade-lined experience and feel comfortable crossing back and forth at safe pedestrian crossings. I think maybe to my former friend in law enforcement, there is a lot of data, and we learned this in Sarasota, that when you reduce speeds and actually have lane diets and make diets, make the lanes smaller that get us to the goal of reducing speeds, you actually create friction that's visual friction. It'll actually allow for closer spacing between cars, and it's paradoxically because we think in our stomach, we know that this has to be true, it's going to cause more gridlock, but it's actually the opposite. You actually are able to move cars more efficiently because they stack closer, there's less gridlock, there's less ability for moments where you gun it and you go at high speeds and do the types of things that exactly we don't want in this new urban corridor. If we think about, the types of things that the Rays and Hines are talking about, asking for dollars for the improvement in ad valorem property taxes, that's the potential here of creating a whole new urban district where you have more affordable housing, where you have a destination to go to eat, shop, and play. That's the vision. And so we would ask you to not only approve this, but hopefully in leadership, of planting trees so that one day our children live under the shade, but you actually think even further than this of those lane diets, of actually dedicated lanes for transit. Am I up?
Sorry, your time is up.
I didn't hear the bell, sorry.
I didn't do the bell, I apologize.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Tina Wells.
There are no other citizens asking to be heard on this item, ma'am.
Nobody else, right? Okay. All right, what's your pleasure?
Well, I think we need an action from the board, so we are looking for a motion.
Commissioner,
Yeah?
if you call PSDA, they will get up and talk.
Well, did you fill out a card, Darden? here?
It's up to you.
Well, since you drove all the way to come up here, how about you come up and just give us the benefit of your wisdom as a former board member?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Long and members of Forward Pinellas. And thank you, Whit, for you and your team here on staff at Forward Pinellas. My name is Darden Rice, and I'm relatively new as Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer at PSTA. And as some of you may know, I sat on this board for a number of years when I was a St. Pete City Council member. As you saw in your packet, there is a letter from PSTA stating our unambiguous support for this project as it was originally conceived and applied for. And we are looking forward to working with our partners from the City of St. Pete, Forward Pinellas, FDOT, and members of the public to deliver this project. The citizens of Pinellas County, especially the citizens in South St. Pete, absolutely deserve the best transit that we can deliver. And best transit, by definition, is transit that is safe, that is frequent, and it enables people to get to where they need to go quickly. Bus and turn lanes are a part of that project to deliver that, and that's what the citizens deserve. And as the operators on this corridor, PSTA maintains that the use of BAT lanes, which I encourage you to vote for today, are the way to make this project the very best it can be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Mohammed?
Chair, I just wanted to weigh in. This project's actually in my district in the city of St. Petersburg, and I'm supportive of it. I'm just going to try and go through some of these points. Knowing that the pigment is not there, if it doesn't work out, the cost of putting it back is something that definitely is a consideration for me. The other part of it about the increases to safety, I've also walked and ride my bike in that area. I actually participated in a cleanup with members of the Skyway Marina District and Broadwater neighborhood groups, and we did not feel safe, specifically with crossing the streets. The fact that there has been negative growth in traffic since 2019, in addition to, how can I say it? There's been negative traffic growth, but there's been increase in population. So I think when we talk about the goals of the district, it's trending in the right direction. I'd like to see us keep going. The Ceridian traffic study has the data that we need to talk about capacity. I also traversed 37th Street and have not seen this increase that's there. As a matter of fact, that would be the worst decision that you could make if you think going to 37th Street is going to help you get, north-south faster. And then lastly, I would say if I'm ever in a vehicle with Commissioner Burke, please make sure that I'm driving. And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Madam.
All right. Vice Mayor Knapp, you have comments to make or any questions or
Sure.
concerns
Just some
or
brief
anything?
stuff, because obviously we're way on the other side of the county from this problem from our friends of St. Pete. But as it's been discussed, we have countywide a real lack of transit options, and I feel like the only way we're going to be able to help reduce the burden on our roadways from passenger vehicles is to make considerations and have this commitment to increase bus service and our other transit options so that traffic may continue to see a decrease in how it swells on the roadways. So many people, drive because that's what we're accustomed to here. We've always built outwards instead of upwards, and I think in general, just having that ability to take what could be an incremental step forward now with this project, will build upon and allow for other things to take place in the future, because there are, I'm sure, many other corridors and districts out there that could benefit from a similar thing. And at the same time, because it is so essentially new and foreign to our area with doing things like this, that albeit it's not a desirable outcome to have to undo it if it has to be undone in terms of repaving over and repainting the street. I think that's minor compared to what we can learn from it, and hopefully you have that commitment moving forward of increased benefits of providing better ridership and just reducing the stress off the roadways.
Thank you. Mayor Will, do you have comments or questions?
I have no additional comments. I still am not in favor of the dedicated bus lanes.
Okay. We've heard from Councilor Burke. Commissioner Driscoll, do you have any further?
I would actually like to thank Vice Mayor Knapp for recognizing that the members of this board who are from the area, the project area, really have a duty to serve our residents, and we're trying to do that through projects like this. If something was happening in your city that we're voting on, I would certainly be listening to what you have to say and trust that you know what's best for your city, just like folks from St. Petersburg really understand what our residents need. So I wanted to express my appreciation. And then as the representative from PSTA on this board, this is another way that we can really grow to meet the needs of our residents today and those that are coming, because as indicated, we do have a lot of development going on right in that area, and we want to look at ways that we can get ahead of the game and make things more efficient. The traffic capacity, as stated, is it far exceeds what the volume projections are on this. I trust the data, not the anecdotal stuff that we hear out there. The data matters to me. The experts and their findings, that's what I'm listening to. And above all, this is obviously a way for us to create a safer environment for anyone who wants to get from point A to point B, no matter which way which mode of travel they decide to use.
Thank you. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you. I just want to echo what I've heard from our council members from St. Petersburg. This is a St. Petersburg issue. St. Petersburg has been very clear that they want this. The council has supported it consistently. It would be far beyond, me to say, well, St. Petersburg, even though you want this and you've expressed a need for it, that I should say no. I am very much in support of this. I absolutely believe in a bus and turn lane, and I think it will improve traffic and safety in the area. I've seen evidence of this before. There's no reason why it shouldn't be the same now, so I will certainly support this.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Okay, well, first of all, just going back to my comments that were, quote, out of turn, I guess, too early, so I could hear all of the thoughts. And I have never said I was against wider sidewalks. I've never said I was against narrowing lanes. I've never said I was against safer situations, which I am. And I think that's what this area calls for. This area of the city calls for. And the idea that you're walking along a 4-foot or 5-foot sidewalk with cars going by and that bothers you, Councilmember Floyd, if you have buses going down there, they're a lot more, they infringe on my perception of safety a lot more than cars do. In addition to the fact that you're now going to have a 10-foot sidewalk. So you're not going to be as close to that road, that discomfort that you're talking about. I still haven't seen the metrics that tell me if you slow the traffic down, if you have wider sidewalks, if you have street crossing assistance, whatever that might look like, that you're not improving safety. I don't understand how a bus that's going to travel down the inside lane and stop at a bus stop with a car behind it, whether it's going to continue on in that lane or not, improve safety. Again, it is your business in St. Petersburg, but BAT lanes and the expansion of BAT lanes in this county need to be done carefully, and not just because you're a transit supporter that we just do BAT lanes so that we create a new culture of acceptance of it. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking at Drew Street, and the city council there is changing their position, or possibly changing their position on that. And that was a lane reduction. And it was all about safety. There is no right-of-way to grow that at all. It's a very different situation. Every situation is unique and different. So again, all I'm talking about is a Safe Streets program. All of the elements are there, and a lane reduction, a repurposing, whatever you want to call it. I just don't see the necessity of it. And it has nothing to do with, you know, me being from North County, not having an opinion about folks in South County. You guys have stated your position, your council stated their position, and the board will make that decision. But I still think, as a member of this board, that I have a right to express my opinion, even if it's not in my area. So, with all due respect.
Thank you. Commissioner Albritton?
So Dave Eggers kind of took away a little bit of what I was going to say. We are going to be talking about Drew Street in Clearwater next week, and I'm probably the only member that agrees with the DOT to take it to 3 lanes. We got a lot of anecdotal information out there that the business community thinks is going to be terrible to get in and out of Clearwater, and I disagree. You know, safety is number one with me, and we tried to get DOT to bring the speed down on Drew Street, and as you said before, they won't do it because of the design of the 4 lanes. They said, well, we'll take it down to, you know, 5 miles an hour, but we can't do anything better. If we take it down to 3, they can take it down, and that's what we need to happen there. And I think if we can get a safer speed, and St. Pete wants it, they think they can be a safer area, then I'm for it. So I would be in support of affirming the action.
Thank you. Commissioner, Mayor Boljowski?
Well, I think the first thing that really strikes me is that the people that are in charge of the district want it. And it doesn't mean that we don't have a say, because we do. We're a regional board, and we do have a say. But St. Pete wants it. Their residents have shown that they want it. The communications we have want it. This project's been in the works since 2017, so that's 7 years, if I'm doing my math correct. Dave will correct me because he's an engineer and really good at math in his head. 7 years. So it's had any number of expert analysis. And I know we all like to think we're experts here, but we're not. This is not we don't do this for a living. Well, he does buses, but I don't know that he does bus lanes. I'm teasing you over there. So I'm not going to second guess 7 years of study and that type of thing. That's not my role. My role is to make a good policy decision based on what the experts have provided us. So when you look at it that way, I understand that the world and the policy of bus lanes, it's very clear to me in the last year, that's automatically changed now. I'm not sure I agree with all of that. Some of it I do, some of it I don't. But I have a community here, in my opinion, that wants it, that it's not going to do any damage based on the studies. I believe we shouldn't just unilaterally say no to bus lanes every single place we look at. And that's what I feel is happening. And I'm not biting. I want to look at the facts, the data, and if the community wants it and it's workable and there's funding for it, why not? I don't think it's that difficult. So I'm supporting it for this particular issue because the community wants it. So, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, I haven't been counting, but it appears that we have a consensus to move forward with. Is that what you're looking for?
DOT is looking for a vote.
Oh, they want to vote.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do you want a roll call? Okay. Mayor, Vice Mayor,
Yes.
Councilor Floyd,
Yes.
Councilor Muhammad,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
No, Madam Chair.
Councilor Boljowski. Aye. Yes. Councilor
Aye.
Albritton. Vice Mayor Gerard? Commissioner
Yes.
Driscoll? Yes. Commissioner Burke?
No.
Mayor Will?
No.
And I am a yes. So I think the yeses have it, and you have your direction. All right?
Thank you, Board. I appreciate it.
Okay, so now we are on the Housing Action Plan update. Who's doing that with?
We have county staff here who will do that.
Hello, county staff.
And I know the meeting's running a little bit longer, but this is an important item as well as part of our Housing for Pinellas, Homes for Pinellas. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Josh Boatwright, Pinellas County Communications. Thanks for having us today to talk about some of the next steps in our housing action plan. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a communications campaign that's sort of in its very early stages, but you're going to see a lot more of as there's news about affordable housing, as there's actions being taken by members of our countywide housing compact. The goal of our campaign is twofold. One is really to recenter the story of housing in our area on the people who are affected by it. This is really about people who, a lot of them grew up in our community but are struggling with the cost of housing and trying to show their stories. Folks who teach our kids in school, who are taking care of our parents in assisted living, working at our hotels. The second goal of this campaign is really to build a coalition of stakeholders who are aware of policy decisions and projects that are going on in the community so that those who want to have a voice in the future of our housing countywide have opportunities to participate as our respective compact members make decisions at councils and commissions. This first slide is just a quick overview of where we've been with the countywide housing compact. This really was drafted back in 2020 with the cooperation of Pinellas County and some of our large city partners. Over the years, we've had 7 cities that have adopted the compact, and last year had a major milestone with our second housing summit, which was our first actual in-person housing summit because the first one took place during the pandemic. At the last summit, we launched the Housing Action Plan. The members of the compact launched the Housing Action Plan, and we started laying out concrete steps that the county and our partner cities are going to be taking to create more housing choices in the coming years. So this communications effort comes out of that Housing Action Plan. Goal 9 of the Housing Action Plan specifically talks or speaks to a joint communications and outreach program. We already have a website, homesforpinellas.org. If you haven't been there recently, we've done some updates to the website reflective of this new campaign that's focused on our local residents. But just to give you a backdrop, we've started really reaching out in the last 6 months to many of our counterparts in the cities and their communication departments to to work together on a joint communications plan that amplifies the successes that we're having in each of our respective jurisdictions, and also looks to develop a strategy together to make sure that this message is getting out to the community. So this slide really embodies what we're trying to communicate in this campaign. This is a summary of some of the workplaces that residents at Skyway Lofts, one of the more recent affordable housing developments in St. Petersburg, where folks who live their work. We have folks who work at our hospitals, at our school systems, at our assisted living. And so you can see, and I think it's kind of become, anecdotal and also data-driven, that affordable housing is something that people need in a lot of different tiers of the job market right now. And so you're going to see that, and what we're going to be trying to show a lot more instead of just tell, is the stories of who actually lives in some of these affordable developments that we're working on together. So the working title we're using for this campaign is Local Homes for Local People, and the reason we went with that campaign title is because really, and I know a lot of people, I think a lot of people know people who grew up right here in Pinellas County, in our communities, who have full-time jobs, but they're just not able to make ends meet with the way that the housing market has shifted. This is not something unique just to Pinellas County, but we want to show that, really it is our citizens that we're doing these efforts on behalf of. The messaging for this campaign is based on some research that we did with some national and international organizations that have studied effective housing communications. And I just wanted to note a couple of principles as far as the messaging that we're going to be putting out in the coming months. The number one thing is you're going to see us talking a lot more about homes versus the concept of housing. Housing tends to evoke sort of a policy abstract idea in people's minds, whereas everybody has an idea of what home means. Home is a value that is shared by everyone. It means a place that you feel comfortable, where your family feels safe in a home. So in as much as we can, we're going to be using the terminology homes to describe the work that we're doing. Second foundation to our message is really using real people. It's interesting, we had a conversation with some folks in the affordable housing arena at the Habitat for Humanity in Osceola and Orange County. If you've ever been driving on I-4 recently, they have some big billboards up that say "Face the Housing Crisis," and it shows pictures of school teachers or nurses. And one thing they said is in their initial research, they found that a lot of people, when asked about people in particular jobs getting pushed out of their community, if that mattered to people, a lot of people said it didn't matter that much to them when they were given some focus groups and surveys. But when they shifted it to actual stories of actual people in the community, real people that actually live here, that changed the dynamic significantly. So that, based on that, we're really going to be focusing on highlighting the real people that live in affordable housing in our communities and documenting their lives. And lastly, the research showed that it's very important to focus on concrete solutions. With all of the data that we hear all the time, it can look like affordable housing is an insurmountable issue. And so the important thing is when we're talking about policy solutions or projects, to really show concrete things that have worked, possibly in other communities, but specifically things that have worked in our community and that we would like to see more of. So these are just a couple of examples of the local stories that we have been highlighting. The first one is a school bus driver who got into a Habitat home just a few weeks ago in Lellman. She was on her job for 22 years as a school bus driver, and she told a very compelling story about her and her family facing homelessness despite the fact that she's been employed in a part of the community for her whole life. So she had a really great story to tell. You'll probably be seeing that on some of our social media channels soon. The other story is about a school teacher, a middle school teacher right here in our community in Seminole, an unincorporated Seminole, who through the down payment assistance program was able to get into a house right near the school where he teaches. So we want to really ground a lot of our storytelling in folks like these two, like Dylan and Tangela Butler. You'll see more stories like that that have come out also from some of our recent affordable housing events this spring. So lastly, these are some of the actions we'll be taking in the coming weeks and months. The first piece, as I mentioned, we've updated our website, homesforpinellas.org. It was originally envisioned to be a hub for the housing compact of all the work that we're doing. And it still is going to be that, but we're really going to try to shift the story towards the stories of these real people that are being helped by these housing programs, as well as help people get to resources. If you're a developer, get to resources for how to partner with cities and other agencies to do affordable development. If you're a person looking for affordable housing, we've linked up to a lot more resources by the cities and the county for where you can try to find affordable housing that does exist in our community. 5 housing events and resident and neighbor stories. So some of these have already happened. We had a couple of great events a couple of weeks ago in St. Pete. Bayou Court and Innovare were 2 affordable housing developments that broke ground and had a grand opening. And you might have noticed in some of the news around those, both those stories really focused on, for Bayou Court, the school that is next door to where that development is, that the developers said they're going to try to favor school teachers and other workers to get homes in that new apartment complex, and Innovare on some of the stories of the residents there. We have a few more, and we're going to be really centering the stories on the residents in those places. We are doing some research on best practices for neighborhood level engagement. I mentioned we've been engaged with Habitat over in Osceola and Orange to talk about their Face the Housing crisis campaign, which I think has some similar aims to what we're trying to do here in Pinellas County, just to get people engaged in all parts of our county to understand how the housing crisis affects them, and then connect them to information, education, as well as opportunities to make their voice heard in the process. Informing stakeholders. So we're going to be launching a routine email blast, working with the Housing Community Development Department with Fort Pinellas, that updates our stakeholders on both actions that the compact partners are taking, but also opportunities for people to get involved in the process. If there are board or council meetings where important issues coming up, we're going to try to let people know so that people have a better understanding of where they can get involved in this process, which can be pretty large and overwhelming if you don't really know where you can step into it. You'll be on this board getting additional presentations from compact members and other partners about efforts going on in the community, so that's an ongoing thing. And lastly, our coordinated communications with compact partners. It's really important because this is a collective effort. So as I mentioned, we've started these meetings with communications in our cities, and we're going to be trying to widen that group a bit to really fine tune our messages and make sure that we're elevating each other when we have success stories. Because I think, a big part of it, this is a daunting national issue, but we want to really show our community that we're taking concrete actions that are helping people stay here in their hometown. So with that, I'll take any questions.
I don't have any questions, but thank you for your presentation.
Madam Chair, I just want to state for anybody who might be interested that tomorrow the Area Agency on Aging for Pinellas, for Pasco and Pinellas, will be holding a senior housing roundtable at their offices at the Koger Center. Senior housing has become quite a crisis. Seniors are being priced right out of their homes and are living in their cars right now. So if anybody's interested in attending, it starts at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much. Board members, we have one more fairly quick presentation that will cover the analytical component of the housing demand, and we have a consultant joining us from SB Friedman who is online, based in Chicago. They have been our consultant and the county's consultant on this issue for quite some time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the intro bit. My name is Michael Razov. I'm a project manager with SB Friedman Development Advisors. I'm joined today by my colleague, Caitlin Johnson, who is a vice president at our firm. SB SB Friedman is an urban planning and economic development consulting firm based in Chicago, as was mentioned. We work with municipalities and public sector agencies on a wide variety of projects related to real estate development, community planning, and economic development. As I'm sure you're aware, for Pinellas and its partners through the Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact, developed the Housing Action Plan to support the creation of more housing choices attainable by people at all income levels. SB Friedman was in turn engaged by Pinellas County to conduct research and various analyses in support of Housing Action Plan goals. As part of this work, SB Friedman projected countywide housing demand through 2035, and then later researched best practices for preserving affordable housing, as well as transitioning naturally occurring affordable housing to legally restricted affordable housing. And I'll quickly present some key findings from both these work streams. We've given a much longer presentation to Pinellas County that has greater detail. So first, the housing demand work. As I mentioned, we created a housing demand model. This model accounted for things like population growth and many other demographic and market trends that are happening in Pinellas County as well as nationwide. We found that to accommodate the anticipated demand that we're likely to see in the county, Pinellas County as a whole, so the county and its various municipalities, together need to add around 46,830 new housing units by the year 2035. This comes out to around 3,345 housing units per year. Over the last 5 years, Pinellas County and its municipalities have permitted an average of around 2,730 housing units per year. So our demand projections represent a moderate increase over recent history. Therefore, to accommodate this anticipated demand, the rate of housing production in Pinellas County needs to increase for all housing types, but particularly for multifamily housing. We know the county is becoming increasingly land constrained, so as time goes on, we project that single family housing is going to make up a lower share of the new housing production, just given the availability of sites. We also looked at the housing demand by income. So the chart you see on the right is the same numbers from the last slide, just instead of broken out by typology, they are divided by area median income levels. Again, if the county is to accommodate projected growth, about a quarter of the net new units would be needed for households earning below 60% AMI, a quarter for households earning between 60 and 120% AMI, and the remaining half or so for households earning 120% AMI or greater. The recent housing that has been produced by the market has really been heavily weighted towards those higher price points, those higher income levels. This market housing production should continue and in fact increase in parts of the county where it makes sense to do so. However, for Pinellas County, municipalities, and its many partners should still continue their efforts implementing the Housing Action Compact and growing supply of housing for low and moderate income households. Really to present just a few stats of the current picture of affordable housing in Pinellas County. We looked at the recent success of the Affordable Rental Housing Development Program. As you may be aware, between January 2021 and January 2024, the Pinellas County Board of Commissioners approved 15 projects assisting a total of 1,253 units at a cost of around $40,000 per unit. If you take a look at the chart, you'll see that most of the units that have been assisted have served those 60% AMI households or below. We also looked at the existing stock of legally restricted affordable housing in the county. You may be familiar with the data, but just to summarize, there are 11,610 legally restricted affordable homes within Pinellas County. The public housing units and the land trust homes are permanently affordable, but the majority of the legally restricted affordable housing here in Pinellas County is subject to expiring affordability covenants. If you take a look at the chart on the bottom right, you'll see that there aren't that many units losing their affordability restrictions in the next 5 years, but after that, that number does grow quickly, speaking to the need to kind of anticipate this issue and start thinking about it now, as the county is doing. We're well aware of the many efforts that Pinellas County and its partners have underway to implement the Housing Action Plan. I won't go through all of these, but there's just work related to updating zoning codes and regulations, building partnerships across industries and sectors, and engaging the community, as you heard earlier from Josh, among many other things. We support the Housing Action Compact framework and urge for Pinellas and its partner communities to continue implementing the Housing Action Plan. And then so everyone can collectively move forward to meeting the countywide needs around housing and affordability. Finally, we examined the county's program guidelines and conducted case study research to find best practices that other jurisdictions around the country are doing to preserve their affordable housing. This slide summarizes the recommendations that we gave to Pinellas County. Again, I won't read every single word on this slide, but overall, just we believe that refining the tools to preserve existing affordable housing would be a very effective strategy to add to the current framework. When it comes to preserving legally restricted affordable housing, there's two different considerations to keep in mind. One is for projects that have expiring affordability terms. Those projects may need additional funding to extend the affordability period. We recommend prioritizing properties that have 3 to 5 years of affordability remaining, especially those in high cost or appreciating markets. But there's also projects that have a much longer affordability term that still may need some recapitalization funds so that they can make improvements and maintain quality homes for the people living there. So our research finds that this usually comes around years 20 through 2025, years 20 through 25 in a project's life. So we recommend that the county provides clear guidance as to which programs should apply for, what those guidelines are, and the overall project benefits, whether this relates to creating new programs related to affordable housing preservation or the communications around existing programs. I think our recommendations could apply to either. So that summarizes our presentation. Thank you for listening to us today, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our presenters? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I keyed in on one thing. It was on an early slide about the types of houses, types of housing that would be needed. And it was broken down. It had actual numbers, and I think it said about like 10,000 new single-family detached homes on the slide. And, you know, I don't know if your task was just outlining this, but, you know, the idea of creating 10,000 new single-family homes seems tricky when we have such a limited amount of land. And so I wondered if you could speak to that, and if you could just speak to how you determined this breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. Our more in-depth deck kind of goes into our methodology and how we kind of came up with these projections. When it comes to the numbers that you see on the screen, we started with historic preferences, so where people are living, what kind of housing people are living in today, what kind of housing they say they want to live in, and then, you know, projected into the future. We looked at a lot of third-party reports, you know, that look at this, you know, future housing demand and typologies there, recognizing that these things change. You know, the type of housing you could build absolutely does depend on the supply of land, the availability of sites, just as much as it depends on the demand, what people want to build. We believe that, I guess, based on the demand, I guess, you know, who's expected to live in Pinellas County, who's expected to move into Pinellas County and stay in Pinellas County, that these numbers represent the housing that reflects their preferences. But again, implementing, you know, the housing action plan and then getting, you know, the adequate amount of housing in Pinellas County, that will depend on, you know, land availability, and that will depend on what the county and municipalities will do when it comes to land use policies and just permitting affordable housing.
I think that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. It's, from what I understand from all this, is This is the analytical identification of the need, but then there is a policy component. And from a policy perspective, you're right. I don't know that there's a way that we can generate that number of single-family new detached homes. So, this is driving the policy considerations, but that doesn't mean we have to make a policy to create 10,000 single-family homes.
Yeah, okay, thank you for that, and I appreciate the explanations. It reminded me, or the answer reminded me a little bit of something from a later slide, which had breakdowns in renters versus owner-occupied at one point. Yep, this slide right here. And it looks like, majority in all of the income levels were renters. I'm assuming, although I don't know the number right off the top of my head for the county, but I know for the city of St. Petersburg, there's a good bit more owner-occupied than renters. I assume if you go further up on the income level, you start to see where the ownership really will lie and how we get to the numbers that we do today. So I was wondering, is this slide based off of what it looks like right now, or what we anticipate it to look like in the future based off of more expensive housing costs, or?
Yeah, again, a great question. A little bit of both would be my answer. We start here looking at what's the state of the current housing stock within Pinellas County at various income levels. We look at who's living in multifamily housing, who's living in single-family housing, who's living in condos, townhomes, things like that, renters versus owners. And then again, we make some projections going forward on what that housing mix will look like in the future based on demographics, based on population change, based on third-party research that talks about the housing markets, broker reports, things like that. If you take a look at the chart, yeah, you will see that as you go up in income, the home ownership rate, I guess, increases, or rather the number of owner-occupied housing units that we say are needed increase. Most of the housing that would serve the lowest income households, those earning 60% AMI or below, most of that housing would be renter-occupied and would be produced through tax credits, public-private partnerships, things like that. Whereas the housing in the 60 to 120% AMI, and then certainly the 120% AMI plus, that could be produced both through, yes, public-private partnerships, but also just on the open market with what the current rent and price points would be for those.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. It was one of the most enlightening things I've seen around housing in my time as an elected official, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on this side have questions? Questions over here? Yes.
Thank you. Regarding, I'm looking at slide number 7 regarding the existing supply and the the covenants that are going to be expiring over the next 10 to 20 years. How far, if we were to move forward with an initiative to address that and try to address it with incentives or whatever it is that we would need to do, how far in advance do you start having those conversations?
Yeah, ultimately it'll depend on what sort of program Pinellas County implements, or whether they continue to run with their existing programs, which they do have. Our recommendation when it came to preserving affordable housing and thinking about extending affordability covenants, we recommended looking at properties whose affordability covenants are 3 to 5 years from expiring. So I guess when we recommend that conversations with property owners begin when the county or whoever the operator or funder would be, would start thinking about this issue.
Okay.
Then I'll just add to that, if you don't mind. That is one piece of the work that we did, was thinking about the preservation of existing legally restricted affordable housing. And yes, there aren't many units expiring in the next 5 years, but the other component that we looked at is preserving naturally affordable, naturally occurring affordable housing. So those units that are on the private market, but that are affordable to households earning less than 80% AMI. And certainly in the near term, there is a need to address the affordability of those units in the long term with increasing housing costs countywide. We do think it is important to start thinking about that earlier.
Okay. Great point. Thank you. And then, you know, aside from, so going back to the naturally occurring affordable housing, maybe something that's not under a covenant, but preserving existing affordable housing that is naturally occurring is something that's been of greater interest to me lately, because we're building a lot of new and we're making some good progress right now, but it's often cheaper and faster to fix up what we have. And, you know, sometimes that is, those are single-family homes that perhaps are weighed down by code violations and things like that. Have you looked into that? I really want to see how big of a piece of the puzzle that can be. And what are some common tools or something that, you know, maybe we countywide or on a city level could look at studying and implementing to really turn that type of housing around to make not new, but improved housing options that are affordable?
Hi, if Caitlin and Michael don't mind, I'll go ahead and also respond. So I'm Rebecca Stonefield. I'm with the Housing and Community Development Department with Pinellas County. We brought on SB Friedman and are working with Forward Pinellas and the other compact partners. And those points exactly are what the Housing Action Plan is all about. And we have a whole gamut of strategies that we're going to be pursuing as a working group and as a tactical team and as working for the county as well. And those are directly to the points of the activities we're trying to complete and address through the Housing Action Plan. And I'd be happy to talk about those, but those are different things that we are moving forward with, especially when you talk about even making homeowners aware of the different programs or funding sources or things that may be available today for them to bring their homes up to code, to potentially make ADA accessible improvements or what the different things may be. So that's exactly what the action plan is attempting to do.
Okay. And is there, you said there's like a whole, I think you said a gamut of things. So I'm wondering, and this is for any of you who would like to answer, is there something that you're seeing that is truly working, that other cities could easily implement, that we could copy and really accelerate the turnover of that housing that's in disrepair into housing that is buyable or rentable?
I don't know if I can point to anything specific right now, and I would certainly ask the consultants based on their recommendations from the preservation that they might want to highlight now. And I think the intention is to pull all of those answers together and make them available to compact partners in our municipalities so they can pull from those examples and adapt them as appropriate within their communities.
Okay, so I'd love to hear what she was starting to say.
Yeah, as part of our work, we looked at best practices in preservation of both legally restricted affordable housing as well as NOAA. We conducted case study research from cities across the country, Chicago, Atlanta, Charlotte, to understand what other cities and communities and organizations are doing to address the issue specifically related to preservation of affordable housing, of NOAA housing. We looked at a couple programs specific to that, one being a high-cost market incentive, which really addressed issues in kind of gentrifying neighborhoods, and we also looked at a program called the Troubled Buildings Initiative, which looked at how to purchase and improve distressed buildings and then transition those NOAA units to legally restricted affordable housing. So we have started conducting that research to understand the specific needs in Pinellas County. Michael discussed in the recommendations that there is an additional need to research the supply of NOAA to understand the typology, the quality, spatial distribution, the risk of gentrification, to really make sure that a program fully addresses the need in the county. The current rental affordable housing development program from Pinellas County does allow for preservation, but we do recommend including more specific guidance, as Michael mentioned earlier.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
How has vacation rentals affected the housing inventory?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Gotcha.
Our study here, when it came to county-wide housing demand, this is really just looking forward-looking at how many people are moving in, who's living in Pinellas County, demographics, their preferences. We did not do research on the supply side for this project, which would include things like vacation rentals and current construction trends.
I think we talked about it maybe 6 months ago, several times when we've had updates, because it does. It absolutely does, or did. Now I think we're past that. I mean, but it did. That's kind of what made us start to go in this tailspin.
Well, it's certainly taken units off the market.
Yeah.
And so
Your inventory's down.
It squeezes the demand into a smaller area, physical footprint. I mean, that's the ultimate outcome of it.
Commissioner Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's significant. We had a presentation on it at the TDC last month. I forget the exact number, what there are countywide. I want to say it was like over 20,000 or something like that homes. It's a big number. So yeah, it is quite significant and probably going to continue to grow.
We're reducing the supply, and here we're trying to find ways to increase the supply, but the existing supply is being reduced. So,
We're just kind of
which is
treading water.
causing the situation that
Yeah.
we're trying to fix by creating more, which have the potential to become a bit more vacation rentals.
Well, and we can't, because of state restrictions, we can't do a whole lot about it. Like in our communities, just as an example, we were lucky that, I don't know, back in 2009, we started seeing some rentals, overnight rental type things, mostly in condos. And so we started zoning our city to where, you want a balance of all of those things, especially if you're a tourism community. If you're along the water, you want to allow those kinds of things. If they're in neighborhoods, you kind of don't. So, but because of state restrictions, we can't make those adjustments to balance any given community or county area.
Yeah, I mean, they're here, they're not going anywhere, and they do provide consumers with options. So, I mean, they're not all bad. There's a good side to them, but we are challenged with how we regulate them and trying to find that balance.
I'm just bringing that up because it's important to include that as a factor as
It is a
to
factor.
where the inventory is going.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody else? There's not a vote on this, right? Thank you so much for your presentation, your hard work. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, Whit, how many things are you going to talk about now?
Hardly any.
Okay, good. I'm so thankful to hear that.
I just would be remiss if I didn't talk about our Pinellas Trail Targeted Enforcement Day that we had.
Yeah.
That was a great event on April 6th. It was a Saturday. We had good weather for it. We had participation from a number of law enforcement agencies, including the sheriff and several of the cities. You've got detail in your report. I was really excited about the engagements that happened. And Councilor Burke, you know all about engagements. So, you know, that's an opportunity to remind people what the rules are, what the law says, to answer questions. We did set up some tables to where we interacted, as well as some of the local staff with trail users. We handed out material and information. It was part of our courtesy campaign. And there was a desire by law enforcement to do this again. There was at least one arrest. There were a few tickets issued. The arrest had nothing to do with how somebody was riding on the trail or using the trail. You know, law enforcement will continue to do enforcement activities on a regular basis, but this brings a little more effort to the focus to the educational efforts. And unless you have any questions or anybody else has any questions, we're glad we did it.
Just a comment. Thank you for pulling that together. That was great. I would love to see that be a quarterly thing in the future, because it, you know, annually just doesn't cut it. But if we could work towards some sort of a quarterly, that would be great.
Commissioner Scott was nice enough to come and visit Dunedin. I know he's making the rounds all over the county. But we had him for the weekend of the Highland Games, and we spent quite a bit of time talking on the trail, and I just looked at the numbers. Did you look at the numbers? So in Dunedin, the highest day total of the month of March was 4,400 people, and that was in Dunedin.
Yep.
The next highest day was 1,500. So
It's huge.
we are constantly not complaining, but expressing our concerns about the sheer volume that we have on the trails. So anything we can do to get more enforcement and encouragement and engagements, I think would be helpful.
I agree.
We're going to see if there's an opportunity for targeted law enforcement that could be used on the trail. I know it's used on the highways, but we'll see what rules and eligibility requirements we have.
Wouldn't it be great if we could get more people to volunteer to be rangers? We used to have a lot of them. I say we, you, the county. But I mean, that's cyclical, you know, not a lot of people want to do that. Because, you know, they have to be the bad guy every once in a while. It's not a fun thing to do.
Yeah, they do. I think, that's a valid point. You know, for the problems that we're having right now, though, you really need law enforcement to kind of have that presence. You know, I think once you sort of establish that behavior, I think it's easier to maintain with volunteers. But to kind of get that compliance, we need law enforcement.
The only other thing I'll mention is that our next month's board meeting is going to be on June 10th, which is a Monday. I'm sorry, one second. It conflicts with Wednesday's budget information sessions, I think, that the county has scheduled over our meeting. So we're going to be meeting on Monday at 1 o'clock here in this location on the 10th. Councilmember Floyd?
Yeah, I wanted to mention just one thing on the targeted enforcement stuff is, it's been come up at the city a couple of times and in conversations with constituents about like not really understanding what targeted means and not feeling very good about being targeted. So I just wanted to mention, like, I know that there's other terms.
Find better language.
Yeah, there's other
There you go.
It's FDOT has like high visibility.
High visibility.
Yeah. Nobody has a problem with that one. So just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you.
That's a good
point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm supportive completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obvious to everyone, but so just to state the obvious, I think we all have to recognize that the trail and the purpose of the trail has changed quite a bit since it was first created. It was a recreation trail, and now it's a mobility trail. And so, you know, higher enforcement, just like we would do on the streets, is, and by the way, my wife just bought an e-bike, so I'm one of those. But no, we don't have it yet. It's back ordered.
But I will tell you, it's the e-bikes that concern me the most on the trail, not on the road.
No.
But on the trail.
But
it does. It concerns me a lot.
And we are increasing our mobility trails.
Yeah.
And it's just going to become another traffic pattern that we should look at a long-term solution to that, because it's not a recreation trail anymore.
Yeah. Okay, are we good? We are adjourned.